Gas Mask is going to jump on too tonight.
Over.
Yeah, I saw him. He jumped on last night, right at the end, but we were already concluding. So,
okay.
So that's excited to see that. But what's up, everybody? Let me just go live on IG. All right. What's up, everybody? All right, so welcome to another session of the Masculine Mind Pod, where we discuss male masculinity, self-improvement, and purpose. As you guys can see, me and Jerk here tonight that hold it down for the fellas on the Masculine Mind, and we have another great topic to discuss. All right, I'm going to blame all the men tonight. It's all the men's fault off rip. I just started off like that, but we have another great topic to discuss. Should the leader take the full blame versus accountability for the failed relationship? So as always, if you guys are tuning in for the live show, as always, do appreciate you guys. If you see value in the content, the best way to support the channel is smash that like, subscribe button real quick. And don't forget, this is a virtual show, so if you do want to jump on, the link is in the description on YouTube. Click on that link and you'll be able to jump on and be part of the pod. And of course, we'll definitely have some ladies jumping on within the hour, and they're going to add on the female perspective and join me and Jurdik on the conversation as well. So don't forget, if you do want to share your voice in the pin, drop it through a super chat. A lot of you guys have questions or topics you guys want us to respond to. Drop it through a super chat, and we'll be able to react and respond to you guys. And of course, just donating to the channel. Thank you so much for all the donations. I do appreciate you guys. I got to give a special shout out to Dusty. Dusty always out.
Drizzle Jack.
Dusty Jack, always holding it down and supporting the channel. Even though you do give a lot of hot takes, but I do appreciate your hot takes. and in your cyber stock, and you definitely cyber stock a lot of people on my panel. So, but I do appreciate you. But don't forget, and of course, shout out real quick to Global Financial Impact, my sponsor, financial services. So if you're looking for financial services, life insurance, learn how to be a family bank, setting up your college fund for your kids, and learning how to become an entrepreneur and financial literacy and planning for your future, definitely reach out to Savannah and her team. All their information is on the description on YouTube. But let's get the live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think on the live chat. And of course, if you're watching from other platforms, definitely come over to YouTube to participate in the live chat and say hello. But we'll go right into it. Jerk, as always, thank you so much for making the time to be part of the pod for the Masculine Mind tonight. But I'll pass it back to you. Give yourself a quick intro, and we'll go right into it.
All right, man. I'm the Sophisticated Jerk, coming out of the DMV area. And thanks for having me, Will. I always like chopping it up with you anyway. So, yeah, great topic tonight, man. I'm ready to jump in there.
All right. Let's get right into it. And I know we discussed this topic when you were out here in the studio. I remember when we did the pod with you one-on-one, we did talk about this topic a little bit more. So, the topic we're going to be discussing tonight for everybody watching, should the leader of the relationship, which majority of the time is the man, should the leader take all the blame if the relationship fails? So if the relationship fails, who takes majority of the accountability? Who takes majority of the blame? And if the man is the leader of the relationship, do you guys believe he takes most of the blame, or do you guys believe the woman takes most of the blame? So it's going to be interesting to hear what you guys think. What do you guys think about this topic? I had a video I was going to play, but I can't find it right now. But pretty much, if I can find the video, I'll play it. But pretty much what the video was saying was every single time when something happens in a relationship, there's a natural reaction for society to always blame the man for when the relationship fails, and there's more compassion towards the woman compared to the man. So that's something that was brought up in that video. I'm gonna try to find it and I'm gonna play it back for you guys. There was this guy who had a good take, but he was just talking about in general how society views men, especially when relationships happen. They're always going to show more compassion and leniency to the woman, but they're going to be very brutal and disparaging towards the men when it comes to who gets the majority of the blame. Okay, so I don't really have a problem with that. I think that's I think that's just part of men and our responsibilities, not only to ourselves, but also in society. But I'll pass it back to you, Jerk. What do you think, Jerk? Do you think when the relationship fails, should the leader of the relationship um, take majority of the blame or take all the blame, or versus accountability for the failed relationship? I'll pass it to you, Jerk. What do you think?
And this is a good topic because I've been listening to a lot of different sides on this, I'll say argument or debate that's been kind of floating around. And then, even now that, I'm kind of in more senior, I'll say leadership positions, like executive positions.
Yeah.
At first, I'm always been the type of person, I'm always going to take accountability and blame for everything.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to think, that might be a little bit of the wrong reason. I mean, I think you still should, like the buck stops with me, as the saying goes. But you do have to also, I'll say, give some of the accountability and feedback to like, I'll say either your employees or the people that's under your leadership. Because what tends to happen is like when, you're in that leadership position and you absorb all the blame and stuff, them people, it's almost like you're not allowing them people to have any growth either. Because like, if you're always taking that shield and cover, I just took a promotion, I'll say about a year ago at a different agency and stuff. And, one of the things I had to do is like kind of sit down with a lot of people that kind of had some entitlement. And one of the things, like some of the feedback I was giving them as far as like growth, when they want to step in like leadership roles, things they had to look back. This was the first time they ever heard this in like their 20 to 25 year career. So it's just like, a lot of times people are conflict avoidant. They don't want to give people that feedback. So like I said, a lot of times us as leaders, because I'm guilty of it myself, where, like I said, you'll just take all the hits for the team. You're just like, you know what? Let me go ahead and absorb all this, which I think for a certain component, it's the right thing to do. But you do then have to turn to the employees and be like, okay, here's where you messed up in this process. Because, you guys like misstepped or you did some things wrong. And, here's what we need to address and stuff. Because if you don't do it, like I said, people don't get that opportunity to grow. Then a lot of times, like, when they don't never hear anything back of how they might have misstepped in that process, whether it's a relationship, work, they keep on repeating the same mistakes. And I think that's what we're seeing in society, when we're not giving that like feedback. You see a lot of people that just like have a pattern of bad relationships. They go for the same type of person, they burn out other people and stuff. So I definitely think, it's got to be twofold now versus it's like, the leader takes everything, takes the brunt of everything. You got to start talking about followership, how like followers need to maneuver also. So it's got to start being twofold. We got to start expanding out the leadership stuff because it's starting to get a little generic as far as like just constantly putting the blame on one person. So yeah, that's pretty much my take on that right now.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you for sharing that, Jerk. Tim, hey, good to see you, Tim, on the live chat. I do appreciate you. But
that was good, Tim.
Always good to see you, Tim. And like I said, if you're watching this right now, definitely get the live chat popping. But let me know what you guys think. I do see where you're coming from as far as your standpoint when it comes to leadership, and especially when you have employees or people that you're responsible for. But don't you think that's more of your role as a leader to hold them accountable? We're not saying that, of course, the leader has to absorb majority of the blame because you are in that position, and that comes with that's part of the role of being a leader. That is your responsibility to make sure that the performance of the people that you're responsible for, they perform it and they fulfill their expectations of what they're supposed to do. But if the people that you're responsible for is not performing or they're not doing their job, isn't that the natural role of a leader? Just to like, you have to address that, because if you don't address it, I think that's also one of the things we can say that's one of the qualities that don't make you a good leader. If you're not willing to not only set the example, but also hold people accountable and have those hard conversations. That's part of the job of being a leader. So if you see the people they're responsible for not performing or they're not behaving in a way that's aligning with your values and your standards as a leader, it's your job to hold them accountable for that. And if you're not willing to do it, then it's not really on the employees, it's on you as a leader. What do you think about that?
No, that's facts. That's
Yeah,
the I'll say the hardest part of the job,
yeah, yeah,
is the hold people accountable. And that's why I'm saying I think we got to start expanding. Definitely you take accountability, but everybody else got to also take a little bit of accountability. So it's like you start with the leader, but then you got to give everybody else some of the accountability. And I think, like I said before, by us always kind of like, as the man, you're the leader in a relationship.
yeah,
It's all on you and stuff like that. We're not telling people how to be followers. So it's just like, they're like I said, they're missing out on the opportunities and to get that constructive feedback. And also they're not hearing, okay, yeah, we got on the leader, but this is what you need to do in order to be like I said, a good employee, a good follower within a relationship. So I think that's what tends to make it harder, because when we're putting this message out to men, we're like, you take it all, you absorb it and stuff. What they tend to do, because like I said, I'm guilty of it also, where I would just absorb it all and I won't say nothing to anybody else underneath me. I'm just like, hey, I'll take the hit, I'll fix it, then I will move forward. So like a lot of times when I was doing that, like I said, everybody else was just, they were going business as usual and stuff. So underneath, a lot of those, I'll say, problems weren't getting corrected, because I would just like kind of correct everything myself, take the brunt of it, and take all that burden on. But then everybody else, like in a work setting, was like just like cruising through stuff. So like I said, then, down the line, they might go work somewhere else. And then, those issues would come up because, I didn't address, give them that constructive feedback so they could correct that or hold them accountable for their roles and responsibilities. So like even yesterday, we're talking about, gender roles and stuff. That's the thing where when you assign whatever roles in your household, your structure, that person is accountable for, their duties also. But I think a lot of times it's like, hey, you take the brunt of everything, and it kind of resolves the other person from their accountability. So yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. I think we got to just expand it out a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I do want to. I do want to respond to. I do want to respond to a lot of the men out there that are listening right now. And I know for a lot of men out there, my perspective and my stance when it comes to accountability. I know for a lot of people, it can be very, very extreme, because that's just for me in my personal life. That's we always talk about the 3 tenets of masculinity, right? Accountability, resiliency, and discipline. But for me, I know you posted that video of Andrew Tate talking about accountability on our chat, and it was just talking about how he takes the blame for everything, all the decisions in his life. And I do the same thing for myself. I don't blame anybody. Every single decision and outcome that I make in my life that I don't get, or I always take full responsibility for it. And I know for a lot of guys, especially if they're coming out of a relationship, or they're going through a difficult divorce, or they're just having some bad circumstances and outcomes when it comes to relationship. I know what I'm saying right now may be like falling to deaf ears, like, man, fuck that guy. Right. All these women out here, I know it's hard to hear this message, especially if you were to, if you did what, if your woman cheated on you, stepped out, or something happened in a relationship was out of your control. And I think for a lot of guys out there, they might feel like that it wasn't their fault. And either half of the blame or majority of the blame had to go towards the woman. But I know me and Balafessa, we had a conversation about this. When I say accountability, I'm using accountability as a metric, not for it to say it's your fault. I think that's probably the wrong message to say when we talk about accountability, right? Because oftentimes I hear that messaging when it comes to videos about men talking about accountability in their life. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Take all the blame. Take all the hits. I know especially for men who haven't developed that mental toughness and fortitude and resiliency and discipline and adopted that accountability mindset. Just hearing that messaging that's your fault, especially when your life is falling apart and you're hitting rock bottom. You don't want to hear that shit, right? You don't want to hear that shit. You don't want to hear that. And I think that messaging can be very disempowering to men. I think the messaging should be empowering to men to get out of their problems and to fix their issues. So for the men out there, when we talk about accountability and they're taking all the blame, I don't think when I talk about accountability, it's not using it as a metric to say it's your fault and take all the blame. I'm just saying, I think the best way to say to all the men out there who's going through their failures and their failed relationship, I think the better way to communicate it is, it's your responsibility. That's the way I would frame it. So when I talk about accountability, I'm just saying, if your relationship fails, it's still your problem and it's still your responsibility to fix the issues in your relationship. And I think for me, and I've shared this on a previous podcast we did before the jerk, that I think for me, I believe that if you want the responsibility of being a leader, I think what comes with being a leader is the accountability that the people that you're responsible for is based on how you perform as a leader. So that responsibility goes on you. So if you want to be the leader, if you want to be the majority decision maker, if you want to be the person that the woman submits to and follows your leadership, then you have to be able to take the responsibility for how they respond to your leadership. And that's why my take is, if you want to be a leader and you want to take that responsibility, then you got to take majority of the blame, because as a leader, by definition, like, you set the expectation, you set the standard, they're the one following you, you set the vision, you set the plan, you direct where this is going. So that's just part of being a leader. So I think the bigger conversation that should be added to this conversation is, how do we equip men to become better leaders? I think that's another topic, another conversation that should be also joined in with this conversation. I think there's a lot of men, especially in society today, that we see that there's a big war of masculinity. So, and also we live in a society today that's feminizing men and adopting mentalities and ideologies that weakens the masculinity or tries to destroy masculinity or is against masculinity. So I do understand, for a lot of guys out there, they're not seeing those masculine male figures in their life to learn from, and also they're not being raised to be empowered in their masculinity. So I do have that kind of understanding, empathy for those guys. But I do believe that if you want to become the leader, you have to take majority of the blame. And I think it comes down to two things: knowing how to lead and choosing the right woman. That's why I stand firm on that taking the majority of the blame, because if you pick the right woman and if you know how to lead the relationship, and you have a plan and a goal and a purpose, and you know where you're going as a man, I think it's really, really hard for that relationship to fail. I think most of the times when we see where a lot of guys go wrong, it's either they lack leadership, they lack masculinity, or they pick the wrong woman and try to convert them and try to force them to respect them. And that's a battle you're going to lose a majority of the time. So, and I think
you're messing up. I was going to give you a scenario, but the more gems you're dropping, you're like undercutting everything I'm about to throw at you.
Go ahead. Let's
all right. So this is, I'm playing devil's advocate. So say you're married and your wife cheats on you. Do you still take the blame or responsibility for that?
Yes, I do.
And why? Why would you say you would take the responsibility for that?
No, because the question like I would have to ask first is why? Like, why did she cheat? And then reverse that.
Okay.
Because can we agree on this, jerk? When I don't believe that when people get married initially, when they decide to get married, I don't think they go into the marriage expecting I'm going to cheat the shit out of this person. Right. I'm not talking about the cheaters already. I'm talking about like most men and women who want to get married, I don't think they go into a marriage expecting it or wanting it to fail. I think most people get married. You know what? I found somebody I love, I care about. Let's hope this works, and they get married. But I think there's another conversation on not setting expectations or making sure they have an understanding of what that marriage is going to look like. But I don't believe most people go into a relationship saying, I'm going to cheat on this person, or I'm going to, or I hope we get divorced later on down the line. But I think there's things that happen in a relationship that gets unresolved, and I think one of them is one of them is cheating. And I think if both the man and the woman, if you're not getting your needs, whatever that need is, if that need is unresolved, you're going to seek that intimacy or the attention from somebody else, and you're going to leave that relationship. So my question would be, like, why did that woman cheat? And I think if you ask that question and ask that whatever that reason is, I think that still goes back to you as a man, because women don't just wake up one day, you know what, I'm going to cheat on this person. There had to be multiple unresolved conflicts or things that wasn't addressed. And I'm not saying this to justify, to take away the accountability from her, to justify her cheating. I'm not saying that, right? That cheating is wrong. If she cheats on you, I'm totally against that. But we have to have the conversation of why she cheated, so that way we understand the why. Then we can kind of figure out the things that you have to do as a leader to notice those things, so you can make sure that you address it early in the relationship, to make sure you give what she needs, so that way she doesn't feel like she needs to go somewhere else. But I think that's my question would be, is why, and then reverse that from there.
Okay. No, I expected you to say something like that, and I think that definitely makes sense, because the way you're looking at it is like, even though like that person had their faults and stuff, I have to like analyze it, like you said, reverse engineer it, break it down. And by doing that, I'm gonna learn, for like future relationships, not to repeat those actions. So that's why you're like, men, you still have to kind of, take the responsibility, so you could address like whatever issues and not repeat those issues or behaviors, into the next one.
And I have to caveat with this, like, like I mentioned before, I don't believe most people, men and women, when they get married, they don't get married and at the same day of their marriage say, you know what, this shit's not gonna work out, and I'm gonna cheat on this person. I don't, like, if you married a cheater that was already a cheater before marriage, okay, that's a different story. All right. But I'm saying is, I think most people, when they get married, they don't get married and hope that their marriage fails or they're gonna cheat on one another. I think something happens in that time frame where there's a lot of unresolved expectations and uncommunicated expectations in a relationship that doesn't get resolved, and that leads people to either misbehave or start doing things that harm their relationship. And I think that as a leader, and just go back to the business analogy, as a leader, you have to be able to. It's also your responsibility to be aware of what's going on under the people that you're working with, and especially in your business, right? So, like Jerry, you've managed people before. That's what I used to manage people before in my previous career. You have to have. One of the things I learned in my previous career when I used to be a sales manager is you got to check up on people and have those small conversations. Like, hey, how's everything going? Everything good? You can't just talk to your people like once every 6 months. Like, you got to check in weekly just to make sure, hey, what's going on. If you notice something about them that's that their head's not into it, they're not performing well, you can just see that they're just going through the motions. They're not really performing at how they could be performing. Like, you gotta sit them down on a weekly basis and just have those checkups and have those conversations, so that way you can figure out solutions so that get them back on track. And I think a lot of times when I hear men say, my woman cheated, it's the assumption that that they make it seem like women are just evil, or men too. The woman will say, the man just cheated, but there's no conversation of why, because we're human beings. There's always a reason why we behave in a certain way. We don't just make big decisions like that, especially making decisions that we know is going to harm the person in the relationship without thinking it through. So there's always a why, and I think we have to address the why to that decision. And I think when you find out the reason, whatever that reason is, then you can figure out a way to solve that issue and address it early on to see so we can see the signs of, if whatever that, if your woman was just lacking emotional intimacy, she didn't get that from you, then that's something you have to address early on to make sure, okay, what are the things I need to do as a man to make sure that I'm emotionally connected and she feels like that she's loved in the relationship, right?
No, I like how you broke it down. So it kind of I kind of see now why some people, give pushback on take the blame of everything. So I think that's the word that's like hanging it up. But like the way you explained it, I mean, that's the same way I am. It's like, man, analyze it, so I could see what happened, so I could prevent that, because I know we always talk about prevention. That's the key. And I saw Lord Punisher put in like discernment and stuff. So yeah, it falls in that same realm and stuff. So it's like sometimes, yeah, I think the phrasing is what's throwing people off when the guys are giving pushback. They're like, the leader should always take the blame, because I think it's like I said, the blame word that like everybody's getting hung up on.
Yeah, the blame word is the word they get triggered,
okay.
right? Because because what I mentioned before, if a man that just got out of a relationship, especially if he's going through a divorce, he's lost everything, or his woman cheated on him and just broke his heart. If we use the word blame, they're not going to hear this message, So that's why for me, when I talk about accountability, and the reason why I'm very extreme about that in my life, it's for me, when I take accountability for my decisions, especially when things go bad in my life, when I fail in my life, I don't use the word blame, like, oh man, I blame myself. The word I tell myself, especially in my mind, is like, it's my responsibility to fix this. That's the word I use to frame myself, to make sure that I take action, so I don't feel like that. I don't feel discouraged by my failures. So when bad things happen to my life, I don't say it's your fault, because that can get toxic. You're right. That can, if you're just overly critical of yourself, and you're tearing yourself down to the point that you don't have no confidence to get back up and to keep it moving. And I think a lot of guys out there, if they don't have that confidence, that can happen to them, especially when they're going through hard times. But I think for me, when I go through my failures, I just like, hey, regardless of what just happened right now, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. So what am I going to do about it? Am I going to complain, cry about it on social media, look for other people to fix my issues, or am I going to do something about it? Learn what happened, be critical, be analytical, figure out a solution, and keep it moving. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. But let me ask you. So when you were, because we kind of came from it from the leadership standpoint.
Yeah.
But when you were like the employee, did you take the same approach and analyze the situation, still take accountability like you would, like, say, like you was in a leadership dynamic, taking the same like accountability to blame and analyze the situation even when you was the employee?
Yeah, I was already like that. I've always been, I was already in that type of mindset, even when I was an employee. I wasn't raised that way. I was just raised to go out there and just make things happen and not blame and victim blame. I've never been a victim mentality type person. Immigrants, we don't even know what that means. Came out here to the US and make something. But yeah, when he came, I've always been that type of way. Just, when something happens, I always take it upon myself to figure out my own problems. But but I do understand that when I used to work for certain jobs, the leadership has an influence on how you perform. So I've worked at certain places where the culture in that environment, especially with the management and the leadership, was poor. Where even though I still performed and still did what I had to do because I still needed to make money, but I do notice a difference when I work for a job that has very good management and they communicate and they make sure everybody's being uplifted. They give you all the resources. They're communicating with you. They're talking with you to figure out whatever you need for you to do your job. I do notice there's a difference in performance as an employee when you work with good leadership compared to bad leadership. And then if you work for good leadership, one thing I do know, and maybe you can also talk about your experience, but I do know that when you work in an environment that's positive and with strong leadership, you're more willing to learn from your mistakes, and you're more willing to address your failures and your mistakes as an employee, because you have an understanding that there's a standard that you have to perform, and also you're working for leadership that you feel like that they care about how you perform. So there's a more open attitude to, you know what, okay, I made some mistakes on how I performed this job. I don't want to underperform. I want to maintain the standard of performance within this environment, this culture that I'm part of, and I'm willing to grow and be accountable for it, and to do my part to achieve the outcomes that they want me to do. But I do notice that when you work for bad leadership, and you don't want to hear from nobody. You don't like the people that's managing you. You don't like the people that's leading you. And oftentimes, bad leadership, they're the biggest hypocrites at all, right? They want, it's they want the very things that they ask you to do. They're not really doing it. They're not doing it themselves. So, so sometimes when I work for bad leadership, I'm damn sure not going to take criticism from them, because I don't see them take accountability for themselves as leaders. I don't respect them. Also, that's another one. We're talking about men here. If I don't respect you, I'm not going to listen to you. So when I work with people, when I work with jobs that had good leadership, I respected the people that was managing me and my leaders. So there was from a men's perspective, and men, we understand this. We can totally hate them. We can totally hate this person, but we respect them. We're more willing to listen and to make adjustments with ourselves, especially when it comes to our own mistakes, when there's a respect level. So, yeah, so I do notice as an employee, even though I was already accountable for myself, and I did my best, I did notice that there was an influence to my behavior and how I performed when I worked with like bad leadership compared to good leadership. So that's why I still go back. That's why I still go back to the leadership, where majority of the responsibility goes on them, because as leaders, and I think who's that the coach? I heard of John Maxwell.
Oh yeah.
The leadership coach, right? He said that his definition of leadership was influence. Is your ability to influence people. So that's what a leader is. So I believe as a leader, you got to have if you can influence people to perform at the standard that you set for the overall. So make sure that people are performing and doing their job to achieve the outcome that you want and the vision that you have for yourself as a leader. That's part of your job. So, and because you're a leader, you have a lot of influence on the people that you're responsible for. So, I know a lot of times we like to talk about, what the employees and this and this and this and this and this, you do have a lot of impact as a leader. And I've seen this so many times where I go from one job that with poor leadership, and and then my work ethic is not there, my attitude is not there, my drive is not there, but then I go work in the environment with good positive leadership, and I do the things I never did before in the previous management, the previous job. It's just because the culture was positive, it was a winning culture, people were working, I was surrounded with people and winners, and the leadership was set a great example. You just have a different attitude and behavior and drive to go work. So, and I've seen that with employees, it starts at the top. The leaders, they have a lot of impact and influence on how everybody below them perform. And I think that still goes the same with women when it comes to our relationships. We have a big influence on our women, especially as men, especially if we're moving in our masculinity with our standards. And I think as women, I believe as women, they have a propensity to follow. If they find a man that they respect, and he has a plan, and they see that they can really see a vision with themselves that they're going to do well with this guy. So I think women have a natural tendency to follow strong leadership, and especially if you're on point as a man. And I think if your woman is refusing to follow your leadership, or is disrespecting you, is not doing the things that you ask her to do, even though I do understand women have a natural, female nature to submit to strong masculine leadership, I think that conversation still goes back to you as a guy, because Jerk, I don't know if you've seen this, Jerk, but have you seen like one woman go with one guy and she disrespects the shit out of this guy, right? But then she just goes from that weak ass guy who doesn't know how to lead, but then she aligns herself with the guy that knows how to lead, and her behavior, her attitude, her demeanor changes, and she doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
She treats him like a king, compared to the other guy that just lets that lets her walk all over him.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times because, like you said, it's like, yeah, I actually had a family member that was like that. She would disrespect the dude, and the guy was nice, and I'd be like, man, why you like stepping all over this dude like that? Then like moved on, and the second guy, what I saw was like he would establish those expectations up front,
Yeah,
and he would, like, if he saw some disrespect, he would just address it, right then and there. So she kind of like fell in line, and then he knew he had like good communication and stuff. So when I started seeing like how he would like talk to her, and like I said, how he managed those expectations, I could see why she was like aligned with him versus the other guy. But just going back to the scenario, I like what you were saying was like setting the tone for like the work environment. I do think that's key, because like you said, when you was talking about it, yeah, I've been in like bad work situations. Where it's just, everybody's
it's misery, man. Nobody wants to work there. Going through the motions, underperform, just doing bare minimum, so.
Yeah, and it was actually recently, man, because I was in a deputy position at this time. So I'm sitting there, I'm like trying to help build up the organization, and then this one leader was just chasing everybody off, breaking everything, and I'm just like, every night I was coming home with a headache because I'm sitting there like talking to the people that like, look, I could work with you, but I just gotta take off because I can't deal with so and so. So I'm like I'm sitting here building all the relationships, and that person's destroying it. So we end up losing like 20 people. I was like, you know what? Eventually they had to address the overarching situation. But yeah, nah, like you said, it causes turnover, aka, you're gonna lose, relationships if you kind of keep a bad leadership structure. So nah, it's definitely relatable.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question, because even when you were in those, say, like bad work environments, were you still able to, even though you didn't have the respect for that person, because I've been in there too, were you still able to produce work at a high level?
Yeah.
And like get your work done effectively and stuff?
Yeah. And I think that just comes to my natural mindset. I've always been the overachiever. I don't like mediocrity. I don't like to do perform mediocrity. So I've always tried my best. Even in the environments when I think my first sales job, my boss was a straight asshole. Never give recognition. Never give recognition to anybody. So. When if you had like a legitimate reason to call the day off, especially when it comes to like a death in the family, like the type of boss who like wouldn't care, that type of boss. So, but I understood. But at the end of the day, for me, I know for a lot of people, when it comes to work in professional environments, they tend to get emotionally involved. And for me, I've always taken like, this is just business. That's always my mindset when I go to work. It's business. At the end of the day, I don't try to make it personal. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to do what's best for me and to make my paycheck. And I know everybody, especially when they work in certain jobs that have a low morale when it comes to leadership, everybody's just there for themselves. So you gotta either. And no, my mentality for certain jobs, like if I don't like the leadership, let me try to take his job. And I've done that a couple of times where I go into a job with the manager, the existing manager just sucks, and I'm like, well, I can either deal with this guy or just take his job, And a couple months later, I took his job and did things my way. But yeah, I've always achieved. But like I mentioned before, even though I always went out there and tried to put my best foot forward, but I do notice there's a difference a difference in influence when you work for good leadership and bad leadership.
Yeah.
So if you are already a overachiever, you go with good leadership. If you go with strong leadership, you're gonna do more than what you're already doing, right? So, yeah, I've always been that way.
Yeah, no, the reason I asked you that, because like I said, I totally agree with you. I'm built like that. Even probably if I shouldn't take blame for stuff, I'm gonna do it anyways. Because like you said, it's like that growth and learning process that comes from that. And like I said, I think Lord and somebody else was like breaking it down in there. It's like the growth that you get from that process, man. I think that's where, a lot of high excelling people, they do that. But I like what you were saying, and I was asking you those questions because, when you was like an employee and you was being led, you still had certain attributes, and that's why I was asking you, because for the topic, I think, yes, as a leader, you should take a large portion of the blame, but I do think we need to start highlighting like how you were when you were a employee, a follower and stuff like that. Because that's where I think the other missing component is when we focus so heavily on the leadership. It's almost like I was saying it to some of our leaders where we had this big leadership program. I was like, man, we need an employee like development program where they need to start learning how to be employees.
Yeah.
And having the mindset to be led, because I do think like sometimes it's always like leadership focused. And you just carry so much of the burden, which a lot of leaders will, but it's just like it would be nice if like, and I think we're starting to do that more even here, where it's just like, hey, all right, let's have a followership program or employee program where it teaches you how to be a good employee and follower, like how you were, where it's just like even in a bad situation, you had the mindset to like still perform. Like you said, definitely you're gonna perform higher under good leadership, good structure and stuff like that. But it's almost like when you were in those situations, you weren't waiting for things to happen. You'll kind of start putting the pieces together and stuff. So I do think people need to start developing that mindset like you had.
And also, you said something that's really important, right? Developing to be a good follower, and I believe that old saying that to be before you become a great leader, you have to become a great follower, right? So I think before you become a great leader, you have to learn how to be a great follower, because once you learn how to be a great follower, then I think as a leader, you have an understanding of the mindset of the people who are following you, right? Because I remember when I went into my first leadership role, one of the things I made sure is, okay, if I'm going to take this position, don't be the very thing I criticize my leaders for. Right. Yeah. So that was something that in my mind, because I remember when I was following these people,
what was that, by the way, though? What were you criticizing them for?
Oh no, just the hypocrisy of the what's that saying, right? Do what I say, but don't do what I do.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Right. Yeah. So they'll tell us, hey, be on time, work hard, positive attitude, take accountability. But these guys, they always blame everybody for their issues, never take accountability for their failures. They're lazy as shit. Everybody knows they're lazy as shit. They do the bare minimum. They're never on time. So just a bad attitude. So entitlement, they want everybody to give them respect, but not earning their respect. So yeah, so one of the things when you become a leader, you have understanding because you've been a follower before, so you understand how what people are the mindset of people who are following you, what they need, the things that you need, especially when it comes to communication. So I think once you learn how to follow, then you have an understanding of the people that you're responsible for. Then that way, when you become a leader, you can address those things because now like the way they perceive you, the way they react to certain things that you do, and how much influence you have, whether it's positive, whatever it's negative. So I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people, they're just given the title of becoming a manager, but they've never been a great follower themselves. Because because as a follower, I think that the things that the traits are a little bit more different, right? As a follower, you have to be able to listen, take direction,
Yeah.
right? Right. In order to be a efficient follower, you have to be able to take a direction. You have to be able to listen. You have to be able to be receptive to criticism, especially when it comes from your leader, right? So these are the things that you have to be a good follower, and I think those are also traits that's good as a leader as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think when you have that understanding, okay, and I think also when it comes to leadership, I think if you understand what your women the things that they need in order for the relationship to work, that those are the things that you can kind of put more attention to and focus on, especially in the early stages, or especially when you start seeing symptoms coming up of little conflicts that you need to address right there. And I think one of my biggest problems before when I first got into management, when I saw a problem when it was very small, but I didn't address it, I was like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow, or it's not a big deal. But then it grows over time, and then now you have a bigger problem a couple of weeks or a couple of months later that you could have resolved very early in the beginning. So that's one of the things I had to learn. Okay, when I see something that I know if it's a problem, or I just have a bad feeling about it, especially if you have a conversation with somebody and you just didn't feel like that the conversation went well, I think you need to address that again the next day or try to solve it the next day. But I think one of the best lessons I learned is to just solve when issues arise, solve it right there, even though it can be confrontational, even though you don't want to do it, even though it's going to be very difficult to have that hard conversation, you have to solve it there. Don't delay it to the next day, or don't delay it for the next week, because that could be the difference between somebody losing trust in your leadership or somebody giving up on you, or somebody just, I don't want to deal with this no more, and move on to somebody else. So that's something I did learn very early. And that just came from being a follower, because when I understood that when I was a follower, when I wanted something done, I wanted my leader to address it like then. There was many times when I don't know if that just happened to you, but you go to management and you address and you express a concern, but they'll just okay, I'll talk to him tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes. You're right, like you're trying to tell them like the things you need from them, or a problem that's going on with your job that you need them to help so that way you can perform better, but they just delay it. But yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. But I also wanted to address something else, because I know the lady is about to jump on. But I see you, Lord Punisher, Paulo Festa. Hey, good to see you. Gas Mask, Vin, good to see you guys on the live chats. Hey, Gas Mask, definitely jump on tonight. I saw you come on last night, Gas Mask, but I know we were about to conclude the podcast at that time. So I do want to jump on, Gas Mask, jump on with us for tonight. Now, but also the reason why, like I mentioned before early in the podcast, I think it's a better message to empower men to take responsibility for their failures, especially when it comes to women, because the societal expectation of how society treats men who don't perform. I think was it Harrison Family Values who brought it up last night's podcast, right? For men, we have to build our value, right, in society. Yeah. Women are born with innate value because they can have children. So there's always a value women have. They're already born with it. But for men, we have to build our usefulness and our value in society, which comes in the form of providing and protecting, which comes from your ability to be competent as a man. So that's why for those guys who are for the guys who are going out there and really just struggling through life and going through hitting rock bottom, to tell them that not majority of the blame is on them, and you can kind of give that blame to other people. I think for people who are already in a very bad, weak mindset, and they already have a victim mindset, that's the worst type of messaging to tell them, because if they already have a weak mindset and they're looking for excuses, and that's how they respond to the challenges in their life, and you tell them, you know what, it's not majority of fault. 50% of it is the woman. Those guys are going to feed off that, and they're never going to take accountability and really do the work they need to do And oftentimes, if they don't do the work they need to do, they never become the type of man that either get recognized by women or addressed or attracted by women or get respected by society. And it's this perpetual cycle in their mind because they're not getting the respect, the attention, the recognition from society and from men in general. And they're always going to be constantly be just blaming people for their problems. It's always the women's fault, but they're not really doing that work. And I think for somebody to transform from rock bottom, and I think you've been on rock bottom before, I've been on rock bottom before. The only way, the only way in my own personal experience, but also what I see and observe with others, the only way I've seen men hit extreme rock bottom and climb out of it and became extremely successful is when they just put it on their back. You know what? Fuck it. My life is shit right now, but at the end of the day, I'm just gonna put all this on my back. I'm gonna take responsibility for it. I'm gonna go out there and work and make it happen. And they climbed out of it. I think it's really, I just think it's dangerous for those guys who already have a weak mindset and they're already victim blaming women for all their problems, to also tell them, you know what, every single relationship that fails in your life, just take 50% of it and then put the other 50% on the women. I think for those guys, it could be very dangerous, and they never learn how to take full responsibility for their life. And I think, and really address the issues that a lot of times, a lot of men don't want to address. And I think there's a lot of things we as men, we fail to address. Either it comes from a lack of confidence or insecurity because we don't have these certain skills or certain things when it comes to relationships with women, and we don't really put in that full effort and that work to make sure that we can turn that into a strength. I'll pass it to you, Jerk.
Yeah, no, I'm just you definitely cooking, but I probably where I need to get better, because I think this is, like I said, they hang on to the word blame.
Yeah.
Because, and like I said, I understand where they're coming from as far as, like I said, the scenario, like I threw at you, where it's like, hey, if she cheats on you or she steals, whatever, what we probably need to do is take it like a step below. Because like me personally, I'm a hard ass. What's up, Paulo? I'll tell him, I'll be like, hey man, suck it up, take accountability and keep it moving. But it's just like, maybe I need to pause myself and be like, look, the reason why you need to take accountability is because, like you're saying, when you analyze the, overall situation and you take that accountability, you're able to spot those problems, and, you could start working through the solutions. You start working through the problems and you start building up solutions and stuff, which overall is going to build your like mindset and all that. So it's kind of giving them like why. And I think that's why sometimes, they give the pushback, because, sometimes we're probably just a little too hard, which is needed in most cases. But I think we're dealing with a little bit of a different society where it's just like, hey, maybe we got to like explain why you need to do it a little bit more.
I think it's a different time. Hey, what's up, Jess? Milka, good to see you guys. Thank you for jumping on for tonight's pod. Do appreciate it, ladies. But I think, just to respond to your point, I think what men need, especially when it comes to self-improvement, they need to feel empowered, right? So I think me, Balafessa, you, Jerk, we grew up in a different time where if our parents or the men in our life was hard on us, we didn't take that as a negative. Like, when the men in my life and my father was, hey, man the fuck up, go get your shit together, I didn't take that as a negative. I took that as a way as a positive reinforcement or empowerment. Okay, I really got to go step up and be a man. But I think we live in a time, especially in today's modern society, that people are so sensitive that you can give them constructive criticism and they'll take it as a negative. They'll take it, oh, you're trying to pull me down, even if I'm trying to give you some hard, tough love, to tell you that this is what you need to do as a man to improve. So that's why I mentioned before early in the podcast, in Balfesta, we talked about this before. When we talk about accountability and blame, we're not saying it in the form of blame. We're communicating in the form of just take responsibility, right? To take responsibility for the things that you're going through in your life. Because if the messaging is blame, then a lot of guys who are already in that weak mindset and victim mindset, they're not going to listen to that message. But I know in the previous podcast with Chris Williamson, they scientifically proved that when men are empowered, when they feel empowered, they tend to make changes and stick to a permanent plan to transform their life. If they don't feel empowered, they're not going to change and make changes in their life. So I think when we talk about taking accountability and being responsible, it's not in the form of, hey, it's your fault. And I think that's the wrong messaging for men, especially the men who are just going through it. But the better message is that, hey, regardless of what you're going through right now, but it's still your problem and it's still your responsibility. What are you going to do to change it? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to fix it? Because no one in the world, no one is going to come and fix your life for you as a man, except you. So, yeah. But like I said, we live in a time in the past where, when men told each other, hey, man up, get your life together. It wasn't a negative. But now I find myself in a situation where I have to be careful how I say that same message to my younger generation family members. If I tell them, hey, man, the fuck up and get your shit together, man, why are you so mean?
So they're gonna call HR on you.
They take it as a negative, but when I grew up, that was a positive. When my mom, my dad whooped my ass and told me, go out there and be a man. I saw that as a way. Okay, that's my way to be, to grow, to prove my man. Not only prove my man wrong, I can be better. But I took that as a positive. But I didn't see that as a negative. But I think guys today, in this generation, they tend to see it as a negative. But ladies, Yaz, Jess, Milka, Mai, good to see you guys. Shout out to the ladies real quick. All right, thank you for jumping on. We have a great topic to discuss, and I appreciate you ladies jumping on tonight and adding the female perspective. We were talking about a topic that it triggers a lot of men online. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And we also have some videos I want to play real quick. We can also react to it. But quick question to Milka, Yaz, and Jess. Do you, when it comes to a long-term, healthy, committed relationship, do you prefer the man to be the leader? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. All right. So yes for everybody, right? Okay. So my next question to you guys: if the man is a leader, he's the one leading the relationship. He's the one that has the vision. He's the one that has the plan. He's the one that's setting the expectation for the relationship. If that relationship fails, should majority of the blame go to the man because he's the one being the leader, or they should split the accountability and the blame, 50% on the man, 50% on the woman? What's your response to that? Me and Jerk just had a conversation. My personal opinion: if you want to be a leader, that comes with the territory, that comes with the responsibility of being a leader. If you want your woman to trust you, to make the decisions for the family, to set up a plan, and she's going to follow you wherever you go, then you have to take accountability and majority of the blame. I say 100% of the blame, accountability for it, because she trusted you to follow you where you wanted to go, and it didn't work out. So if you want that responsibility as a man to be that leader, then you got to take the good, but you also got to take when things fail and when things go bad. But there's a lot of guys online that said, I want to be the leader, but if my leadership fails, it's the woman's fault. That's the conversation we're having today. So I want to hear what you guys have to say for the ladies. If the man is a leader, all you ladies said that you want a man that leads. He's the one having the plan, the vision of where this relationship is going to go, setting the expectation, and you're following his leadership. If the relationship eventually fails and you guys break up, do you believe that the man should take majority of the blame being the leader, or do you think it should still be even 50-50? What do you guys think about that? Let's start with you, Jess. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like, yes, the man's gonna, if he's a leader, he's presuming that responsibility, but it still comes down to it takes two people to keep a relationship going. So you can't essentially put it all on one person. I think, I don't know. I think it's almost, it's not fair, I think, to do that, but I understand the perspective of if he's the man and if those are the assumed roles, then he should take full accountability. So I'm on the fence.
Okay, all right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that, Jess. I'll pass it to you, Milka. Milka, what do you think? If the man's the leader, he's the one directing the vision and the plan and where this relationship is headed, and his leadership and plan fails, should he take majority of the blame, or you guys should split it evenly?
For me, I would say split it evenly, but it also depends on the culture. from a Hispanic culture, men lead. They don't give the opportunity for the woman to make any choices or put any input in of what she thinks and how she feels. But then when you think about the American culture, the living the American dream, we women, we have a voice, and we should be able to take accountability as well. But I do definitely think culture does play a big part in it.
Okay, no worries. Milka, I just want to address something real quick because you said that the formal leadership you just explained that with the woman has no voice, no opinion. That's the leadership. That's leadership to you?
No.
Okay, no. I just wanted to, yeah, because we're talking about like good, strong leadership, not, because like good, because sometimes when we talk about leadership, oftentimes women have the presumption, especially in the West, that they have no voice or they have no input. I think all the men on here can agree when it comes to strong leadership. Men who are strong in the leadership, they will always take their woman's input and will always listen, have conversations with their wife, especially when it comes to things they're trying to make plan for their future. I don't think it's healthy if the man is trying to do everything on his own and he doesn't care about the input and the opinion of somebody that he made a full life commitment to. So thank you so much, Milka. I'll pass it to you, Yaz. Yaz, what do you think?
So I feel it takes two. So I agree with Jess. It does take two for a relationship to work as well. But as a woman, if you're telling your man to lead, you also have to trust him to lead and trust certain decisions that he does have to make. And then because I am a Christian and stuff, women that have a husband, we are his rib, so we are his helper. But we also need to trust him to make certain decisions as well. And if something does go wrong in the decision he makes, you got to forgive him for that and see what plan B can be, because relationships are not perfect. And if you're going to still keep tally marks on what he did wrong, that's also why relationships fail, because you keep tally marks like, okay, but you did this wrong. Okay, but instead of talking about it and moving on. So I do think majority of the time it does take two, but there also are circumstances where, like, for example, in my last relationship, it took my child's father to admit after a whole year of being separated that you didn't do anything wrong. He had to admit, okay, you didn't do anything wrong, emotionally abusive. I was doing my part. And, but in my past relationships, I was very stubborn. And so I also have to take accountability on the stuff that I can work on as well, because society is already hard on men. And so a lot of the times men can be prideful on doing certain things, and because of how society is with you guys. But I feel like if the woman works on building that trust with her man and that you are going to be by his side no matter what, I think the relationship can work out, as long as you also trust and you take your stand as a woman, not man and woman. Okay, you're a woman, he's the man, let him lead, trust him. If something goes wrong, talk about it. So that's what I feel.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Yaz. Maya's still there? I don't know if he's been there. I'll come back to you because I know you. Okay, I'll come back to you, Maya. I'll pass it to the fellas. I'll pass it to you, Paulo. Paulo, thank you for jumping on. What's your standpoint on this? Should the leader take the majority of the blame versus accountability for the failed relationship?
Yeah, I think people use accountability in a way, and we've had conversation about this so many times in the past. People use accountability as this sort of blaming metric to put, certain people and certain behaviors on, under some sort of pretense. My thing has always been this: accountability is not a blaming metric; it's always a responsibility metric. And the reason for that is accountability only serves the person taking accountability. So when we have conversation around men, and the reason why we put a lot of importance and a lot of highlight back onto us as men is because we understand our plight. The fact that we are stuck in a lot of victim mindset, blaming certain aspect of relationship failure on the other side means that a lot of us are still behind the 8 ball, and we see it in society. If we look at the West, a vast majority of the relationship, the women are the leaders by de facto. That's why we hear rhetoric such as, if the woman is X, Y, and Z, then I will behave in such a manner. I will always be reactionary to how they are presented to me. Rather than what we as the masculine mind speak on is that my values, my principles, and my standards remains the same. Regardless of whoever I come across, it either works or it doesn't. And those are left up on the table. Relationships don't break just because of one failure. It's multiple failures from both fronts. And people don't want to acknowledge that. So what we end up is that we end up in a place where people point the fingers and they go, you should take accountability, you should take blame because you were such and such. Again, relationships are between two people. And when it eventually end up in failure or a breakup, it's a multiple break in terms of what that relationship has been to that point. So accountability on the leader. We've heard it multiple times from different types of women, bad, good, undesirable, desirable. The one thing that remains a common thread in a lot of their conversation is we want leaders. Whatever their descriptors or how they define leadership, they want one thing, and that's leaders. When we turn to our side of the fence and we go, are we the leaders that are going to take on relationship in such manner? We often get, but not all men are leaders. So we have one side requesting, please be a leader. This is what we want in a relationship. And then for us in turn, we turn around and go, but we're not leaders. Not all men are leaders, which has some level of truth to it. But also at the end of the day, we use talking points such as women are emotional, men are logical. And then we go into relationship and we fail in those two aspects of leadership and logic, right? So I don't put blame. Accountability to me is never about blame. But when we have conversation of failures in relationship, we have to take account. What are we going to do in terms of moving forward? The leadership aspect is that you understand walking into that role. Should the ship sink, you go with it. And a lot of people want to parade around, especially us as men, and this is the difficult part of the conversation, is that I have to acknowledge as men, we like to parade the label of leaders, but until we're put to the test of what leaders actually are put in that position for, we fail, and we fail miserably. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Paul Fissa. And Jerk, just pass it to you. What do you want to add on? Go ahead, Jerk.
Yeah, everybody gave some great answers. So, me personally, I'm like we talked about earlier, I'm definitely gonna, take the accountability because I like what Paulo said. It's just like that's the assessing the situation part, But I do like what the lady said, where it's just like, hey, it is a relationship. So, I like how y'all mentioned you're gonna take accountability on your end also. And I think it was Yaz where you mentioned the communication piece. Because I think a lot of leaders miss the opportunity where, sometimes as men, we are prideful, but we don't communicate. We don't sit down and discuss like, hey, this is what happened. Like you guys were saying, once we earn that trust with you, it's like, hey, here was the situation. Here's how we're going to move forward. What's your feedback, input, whatever. Then let's address the issue. And I can't remember who said it, but I think it was you, Jess, where you're just like, give some grace, and it might, because, we might be the second chance, so it's like, give people that grace also. So I think everybody gave some great answers and stuff. So I do think like men to a certain degree needs to take that accountability. But I do think like moving forward, people like followers, there's accountability on that end also. So I like how Paulo wrapped it all up. Like it's mainly on self when we're talking about accountability, and it shouldn't be focused on the other person because everybody got a role to play in a relationship. So just for example, like if I, got in this situation and I messed it up, I'm going to take accountability. But after that, I'm going to cuss out Milka Jess, and Yaz. It's gonna roll downhill. No, I'm joking.
All right. Appreciate it, Jerk. I see D Degenerate on the live chat. Hey, good to see you, D. But let's get the live chat popping and let me know what you guys think. I want to ask the ladies real quick. Have you guys ever been in a past relationship when you finally came to, of course, you wanted a leader, but then you finally came to the realization that you're the leader. You're actually the one leading the relationship. And then once you came to that realization and you realize, oh man, this is not going to work out. I want to pass that back to you. And Mike, good to see you. Mike, good to see you. Appreciate you. But I'll pass it back to the ladies real quick. Yeah. Has that ever happened to you? Yaz, you said I see you nodding your head. Want to respond? Go ahead, Yaz.
Yeah, go to Yaz first. She about to break her neck.
Yes, I have. I'm very submissive, but when he wasn't leading, I had to wear the pants. Like I had to go and get 3 jobs to make sure I pay all the bills, and like it was really hard. I'm not saying like
you said 3 jobs.
Yeah, full-time student in college.
Damn.
Took upon taking care of his son. He's not biologically mine, but I was 18 and I stepped up to be a mom. And it was really hard because I'm like, wow, he's taking advantage of like, I'm so nice. And then I found myself like, I have to take the blame because then I enabled it. So when I did try to put my foot down, that's when the emotional abuse started coming in. But yeah, I had to take up the lead. And so I'm not gonna lie, like I can actually, before I fully committed like to God and everything, I'm not gonna lie, I was stubborn. I was like, all right, like you call yourself a man, you ain't no man. Like you ain't no man, you ain't no man. And I was like that. I was like, you're not no man. Like I have to do all this and that. Like he will belittle me. I will meet him there. I'll meet him right there, neck and neck. And that's when I buff up my chest, like, what you got? Like, what? Like, come on. But it is hard because it's like, I'm gonna tell you right now, as a woman, I do want to be submissive. I do want to chill. I want to relax. I want to take care of the house. I want to cook for you. I will, I'll work if you need me to, but it's been this back and forth thing with a woman's not so that's another thing of a conversation where it's like in one part men don't want a woman to work, but then men do want that 50-50. And that's just another conversation I don't even want to like bring into. But growing up, I'm Hispanic. The woman had to wear the pants because the men were type lazy. And then but yeah. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Quick question, Yaz. What was the driving force between like you took 3 jobs to take care of him? Like, what was the reason why you did that? Was it just out of love, or what was the reason why you wanted to take 3 jobs to pay majority of the bills for that man?
I'm gonna be honest. I grew up, and during high school years, I was homeless, and I ended up in foster care. And so when I was homeless, I told myself I never want to go back there again. When you live homeless as a teenager, and that's why I'm writing my book, y'all. So follow me. That's why I'm writing my book. My book should be finished in July. But I was in foster care. And after that, being like the struggle, I never wanted to live like that again. And then now that I was raising a baby at the time, because he was 6 months old when I stepped up, I didn't want him to live a life that I did. So it was like a trauma response of making sure that I take care of the bills. So I'm not like that, like the homeless mindset. I was like, ain't no way. Like, I'm not gonna live like that again. So I went into panic mode and I was like, I'm gonna take care of it and I got this. But that's what drove me into working 3 jobs and making sure I made it, because the trauma of being homeless again, I didn't want to, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Yaz. Let me just pass it to Mai. Thanks. Good to have you back on the pod. But Mai, we were just discussing about should the leader, if the man's the leader, he's the one that's leading the relationship, has a vision and plan of where it is going, in the direction of where the relationship is going. If the relationship ultimately fails under his leadership, who gets majority of the blame? Should he take majority of the blame because he's the one making the primary
Hell
decision?
yes.
Okay.
Hell yes. 1000%. If that's the role that you decided to take, guess what, baby? It's on you.
Okay.
1000%.
1000%. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Mai, and also I'll just pass it to you, Mai. And the same question I asked the ladies: have you ever been in a previous relationship when you finally came to the realization, oh wait, I'm actually the one leading this, not him?
Yes. Like, I've been in multiple relationships where I felt like I was a leader, but that is not conducive to what ultimately would make me happy, nor would it make me feel good. And it did not make me feel good.
Yeah.
I even turned physically abusive, as I said on previous podcasts.
Yeah.
It turns you into a monster when you have to be the one that is protecting, providing 1000%. You no longer get to be the woman. You have to be the man and the woman, which is very frustrating. And like I said, turned me into a monster. Like, I was physically abusive, emotionally abusive. I learned how to be very manipulative. Like, you just learn very bad behaviors when you have to carry everything by yourself. So I don't recommend it. It's not fun. It's not something that I think any woman wants to really do, even the women that swear they want to be on this hype where they're like, fuck men. That's not the real you. The real you would love to be relaxed and easygoing and being able to trust that your man can lead you to whatever end game you guys decide you want to be in. But when you don't have that security and that safety, you turn into a very confused female with a lot of testosterone running through your body.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mai. I think Mai, you got the right hook. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Mike Tyson out there.
I don't know about a right hook, but I could throw something real good.
She got that counter. All right. Thank you so much, Mai. I'll pass it to you, Jess. Jess, have you ever found yourself in a situation in the past where you came to the realization that like you were the one actually leading this?
Oh yeah, definitely. My past relationship with my daughter's dad, that was pretty much the whole like dynamic of it. Was I was the one who basically made a lot of the decisions. If there was something that was going, south in our relationship, I would bring it to the attention like, hey, we haven't been communicating, or I'm not feeling, heard or appreciated by you, whatever the case was. And I would talk to him about it and tell him, these are some of the things that I'm feeling. I think that we need to work on this. Or I would essentially have to tell him what the problem was and how we needed to solve it. And doing that for years, I realized all I did was enable that more, because I'm once again leading and having to enforce things that I shouldn't have to do. I think that too, as the other ladies have said, it takes you out of your feminine era. It takes you out of those qualities that we want to be soft. We want to be able to be led and not have to have the weight of the entire relationship on us, to be the parent, to be the provider, to be the nurturer, to be the financially, responsible person. That puts a lot of strain, I think, on the relationship, your mental health and everything. And so, yeah. And on top of that, it's not attractive. It's not attractive. I think I got to the point where I realized that if I'm going to be leading and orchestrating and, editing the relationship, then I might as well be by myself if I'm doing all the work essentially of both people, which is why I've been single. So, yeah. And I think just in the talking stages that I've been in recently, in the last couple of years, I feel like that's kind of the dynamic too, is a lot of these men want those type of qualities. So they'll allow it because it's nurturing, it's caring, but essentially it's you being assertive. And it's 50-50 with men nowadays. Men who want an assertive woman and men who find that to be intimidating.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Jess. And I'll pass it to you, Milka. What do you think? Have you ever been in the past where you found yourself leading the relationship?
I have. So for me, it was with my ex-husband. We both were in the military, so we knew about leadership. The most craziest thing, though, was that he could lead a command. He could lead a platoon, but he couldn't lead the marriage. So it became very hard. It became to where then we had to have structure of the way work ethics were. Our marriage had to be structured that way, which really sucked because there was no longer that loving, that nurturing, raising our children in a normal home. It was different. There wasn't a lot of love that there should have been. Then when it became to times of what we call real life scenarios of like bills are being passed due, things of normal life, he didn't know how to cope with it. He didn't know how to deal with it. So I had to take it on. I had to lead, and it became very tiring. And that's one reason why I did get a divorce, was because if I can do it all on my own while being married, how much more different would it be with me being divorced? Which now that I am divorced, it's no longer different. He's just not around, and I'm still doing everything the same.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Milka. I'll pass it to Paulo and Jerk. Anything you want to add on or respond to what the lady said?
The critique surrounding leadership in men, unfortunately for you women, you don't have a say. And you don't have a say in the sense of it because the failure of a leadership when it comes to men can only be understood on the other end. And that's the same for women failing in relationship. Oftentimes we can critique some behaviors, but what's most effective is other women in your position or have gone through those positions offering those words of endearment. I think I sort of follow in line, somewhat half agree with Jerk when he mentioned there should be emphasis on the followers in terms of how followers contribute to failures and whatever dynamic they're in. But again, I think this might be my caveman coming out of me. I agree with Mai in the sense of leadership roles. You take on those things understanding that should things turn to shit, you essentially take and absorb all of what comes with it. But yeah, again, the critique on men would be in the sense of other men are more and less in line with understanding those dynamics. It's just the same way as us trying to have a conversation around emotional abuse, which again, I don't understand the dynamic of it, or how that looks from the other end of a female stepping into a tyrannical sort of relationship and getting the abuse from it. So that's my only 2 cents on that.
Okay. Jerk?
Yeah, one thing I was gonna ask all of y'all, since y'all been through a situation where you had like definitely gonna say a bad leadership from all y'all stories. Yeah, you guys are pretty weak. But moving forward, if you would like get into a new relationship, how would you know like you're gonna be in the right dynamic, like based on what you learned? Like what characteristics would you kind of look for and stuff like that? Milka, we'll start with you. Sorry about that.
I would say their mindset, their maturity level. You can have a 32-year-old male that could have the maturity level of a 24-year-old. And vice versa, you can have a 24-year-old with the mindset of a 32-year-old with already a 401k and everything's set. So I think it's just more of their morals, their values, and just taking time slowly and understanding them as a person and taking into accountability of their past relationships and how they are as an individual.
Okay.
Did you would you say you could, as far as like yourself, what would you change going to the relationship? Because we got his component, but what would you change moving forward about yourself though, Milka?
What would I? That's a good question. I would say my patience. My patience, I would definitely change. For me, I was very quick with answers or resolutions. I think patience is definitely one thing I would change.
Okay. All right, Jess.
I think someone's I think looking as far as like what I would look for would be seeing someone's their effort and like seeing especially that initial effort. If somebody's going to, you know, take take charge and initiate a lot of the decisions, or they're making the effort to make those plans or to make you a priority or to make you not do less essentially, but that's kind of what it is. I think as women who you've been forced to have to, make all the decisions and be in control, to have somebody who takes some of that burden from you, who's like, we're gonna do this, and you know that's showing that you have the right intention, you know what it is that you want. Someone who's assertive, I think, is those are like qualities, like being having effort, being assertive, communicating. And I think for myself, the biggest thing is and that's so hard, but like learning how to not be in control. I think that's something that I have to work on with anything, even with my kid. It's like, this is how I fold the towel that way. It's like, does it get done? Yes, it gets done. Will I go and refold that towel? Absolutely. But I'm like, I have to learn how it doesn't always have to be done my way. And I think that's one of probably the biggest things in the relationship that I was in, was it was constantly being fueled by somebody purposely doing something the way that I didn't want it to be, that I couldn't allow myself to be comfortable or to relax to allow him to take over. So I think teaching myself to learn, like, same thing, like patience, and like it doesn't have to be my way all the time.
Thank you. All right, yes.
So I agree with the last two ladies. Definitely the morals, the maturity level. As I said last podcast, I am talking to somebody, and the difference, I never knew that a man can be so patient and be assertive at the same time. And the patience with me, because just like Jess said and Milka said, I have no patience. Like, oh, you're not gonna do it, I'm gonna go do it. Like, I'm gonna go do it, I'm gonna go get this done. You're still sitting down, like, this needs to be done right now, because if not, I already know you're gonna wait till the last minute, or it's not gonna get done. But the fact that there's times where I'm like, no, I got it, like, don't worry, and he'll be like, oh, okay, and then he'll just do it. And so I've never had a man just lead with patience, and he's not prideful. A man that's not prideful and does not care what the world thinks, that is such a turn on, because it's like, you don't care what these other men say about you. Like, you don't care what the world says about you. You really just want you and your woman to work out, no matter what the outsiders say. And that really also, I don't know, that brings like the submissive side of me. I'm just like, look at me right now. Oh yeah, stop.
No, I appreciate that. All right, Mai Tyson.
That was the old thing. I don't beat on men no more. Okay. I mean, I've been in my relationship for quite some time, and what makes him so different is the fact that he's very disciplined and very decisive. And I didn't have to feel like I have to give him purpose because he already had his goals in order and he already had his vision. So like I was stuck in a place where I had to come in and I couldn't feel like I couldn't it was hard for me to not feel needed. Like he didn't need me to function. He could function on his own. He had his own thing going and he knows what he wants to do with it. So I had to figure out what else can I bring to you? Like what do I do? Like where do I fit in? And that was so different for me because I was so used to people wanting things from me and I would give it or I would feel like I have to give somebody purpose. So it was like when I was faced with that part of our relationship, he basically had to sit me down and tell me like I don't need you to pay for anything. I don't need you to babysit me. I don't need you to be my mother. What I do need you to do is be my partner. So when you're like I'm good at certain things and he knows that, he'll ask me for those specific skill sets, or he's allowed me to be more feminine in the way that I operate. Like I don't have to go to work. I don't have to like I don't want to go out really. Like I could stay at home. We spent like he'll like recently we just talked about a show that he wants me to watch so we could talk about it. He finds ways so that we stay connected, or if he knows that I'm interested in something, he'll take the time to watch something and then we'll have that moment to connect. And like previous ladies have said, that amount of effort is so different than what I had experienced. So the transition into it was beautiful. Like I love it here. I'm never going anywhere, but that was a very hard thing for me to learn is like, you don't need to be needed by your man. Like it makes you want to do more because you're not needed. When you're overly compensating for something, it's exhausting. So I think that's pretty much my story behind it is I had to learn how to not be needed, how to be by myself, essentially, like be with him, but be my own person, not make him my identity.
Okay.
Thanks
All
for
right.
sure. Can I just ask my
Yeah.
quick follow up on that?
Yes.
Because I like what you said as far as like he had the plan and stuff, and then he kind of incorporated you into his plan and stuff. Like you said, he sat you down. Do you think like more females need to kind of like look for guys that got that plan, that vision and stuff, and then have that
Yes.
sit down like with you?
I think we sit in such a toxic mindset when it comes to women that we can save men, that we can change men, that we can give them purpose. And it's on that hopes and dreams that if I give him this and I do this for him, then he's going to bring me along. And that is full of shit because a man knows what he wants to do with you before y'all get serious. Like if the approach is standoffish, he doesn't want you. If you don't feel like he wants to be around you, he doesn't want to be around you. Men are very literal in the way that they are. Like we're so good at building stories as women that we go into this delusional world where we're like, if we keep doing this, if I keep giving him this, then he'll do what I want. And not knowing like this man has already told you what he wanted. Like you could probably ask him and he'll probably tell you, unless he's just a liar, then you shouldn't be messing with him anyways.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank
Back
you
to
so
you,
much.
Will.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mai. Now, when Mai said, what makes this man different, in my head, it was like, he can dodge my punches.
He was bobbing and weaving.
I would never like it.
No.
There's just a level of like he commands the respect,
No,
and I
no,
can't. I don't even raise my voice with him.
I know.
Like, I don't even raise my voice. When I get mad, I just sit there and I'm like, okay, let me go take a walk because I can't say like
I'm just
I don't want to get in trouble. That's how I be feeling.
All right. Thank you so much, Mai. But let me pass it to Gabby. Gabby, good to have you back. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for jumping on for tonight's pod. But Gabby, we're just discussing. I know you mentioned it before on previous pods that you would want to be a man. You would want to be with a man that's a leader.
You had me a little nervous there, Will. I was like, man, look, what is it? Almost 12 o'clock? What's going on, Will? After hours and shit?
Some of that sentence is incorrect.
Let me correct myself. Take accountability on that. But you would want to be with a man that's a leader that can put you in your feminine because you would want to be more in your feminine role.
Absolutely.
So we're discussing if the man is the one leading, he's the one setting the plan, the vision, the direction of where you guys are going. and the relationship ultimately fails, and you trusted this man's leadership, but it ultimately fails long term, should we put the majority of the blame on the man and the leader, or should we just split it evenly between the man and the woman?
I think regardless of who the leader is, the responsibility of the relationship falls on both people. I mean, I think it would also depend on what the reason it failed would be, right? Because if it has something to do with something not being provided for while he's the provider and I'm the stay-at-home mom, then yeah, maybe he might be to blame more so than I am if the issue is based on specifically that. But if the issue is, let's say, him not feeling he has a warm enough home to come to, then that issue would fall more so on me, right? Because that means that there's something I'm not doing on my end that is making him feel like his home is not sufficeable. So I think it would, one, depend on the issue, but regardless, ultimately, no matter what the issue, it still falls on both parties because both parties have to work their hardest to be their highest selves for each other. And if one person is feeling like something is failing, then both people, no matter how high the percentage, have a role in that.
Okay. All right. Much, Gabby.
No problem.
But I see you guys on the live chats. BJ Tight 98, good to see you on the live chat. PAF, good to see you on the live chat. But let's get that live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your feedback. And of course, if you do want to jump on, the link is in the description on YouTube. All right. So I have three clips I want to play for tonight. I want us to respond as a panel that's related to the topic we're discussing. So I saw 3 clips of 3 things that men tend to put majority of the blame on the women, and they tend to not take any accountability from my observation online. So it's going to be interesting to see your reaction to what you guys think about these 3 clips. So I saw 3 clips about guys just talking about the problems when it comes to relationship and why majority of it it's the woman's fault. So let me play this first clip. We're going to react to it. And let me know, and then I'll come back to you guys. You guys let me know what you guys think, and I'll pass it. And of course, if you're on the live chat, let me know what you guys think as you guys are reacting to this clip. So let me play the first clip real quick.
Correct a man or get him to see your perspective if your way of correcting him comes through criticism, comparison, condemnation, or being condescending. Attempting to reveal to a man his error or your perspective by "I gotcha," or by comparing him to another relationship or another man, or by displaying your superior knowledge in an area, those are surefire ways for him to disconnect from you. But if you want a man to hear you, if you want a man to understand you or to see your perspective and even recognize his own errors, one of the best things you can do is connect with him first. Ask him questions. Try to discover why he made the decisions that he made, or his processes, or his thinking first. And when you seek to understand his why, that is a great way to connect. That's a foundational way to connect with him. But if you truly want a man to see your perspective, if you truly want a man to understand you, you can only reach him, or you can best reach him, through compassion, through kindness, through consideration. And all of these things come through your connection with him first.
All right. So that was a clip I saw. It was interesting to see that on the live comments. So as we understand on the panel, for most women, and you guys already mentioned it before, most women want leaders. And what the men are saying is, we're trying to become leaders and we're trying to take accountability for our mistakes, but the women are constantly condemning us, criticizing us, comparing us. They're always putting us down, and a lot of the men are saying that's why a lot of times we don't want to change. It's hard for us to change and take accountability for our mistakes, because the women in our lives are not trying to uplift us and encourage us to become better. So that's why when we make mistakes, we don't address our mistakes. We don't want to take accountability for our mistakes, because the way that women communicate, they're always trying to put us down. So it's interesting. We have our take on it, but this is a clip I did see online, and man, the comment section was going off between the men and the women. But what do you guys, ladies, what do you guys think about that clip? What's your reaction to it? Do you think there's some truth to it? That if a man is making mistakes, do you believe the best way to address that is through condemnation, through criticism, or to comparison? Or do you guys find yourself in a situation where if the man makes a mistake, you're trying to connect with them like that man, like the guy was saying, you have to connect with them, empower him to make sure he makes the changes that you need him to do, so that way he can become the type of leader that you want him to become. So let me pass it to Maya, because I saw Maya's reaction on her face as she was reacting to that video. What's your reaction to it, Maya? What do you think about that video? Is there truth to it, or are you just some full of shit?
I think it has some kind of value to it, but a lot of it sounds like crybaby shit, like things that I wouldn't want to deal with. Like, my man would never send no shit like that. I'm not even gonna lie. But it's also like, it goes back to, I think sometimes tough love is good for men, because you need to be able to weather some storms. Like, if you're gonna cry at the drop of a dime because I told you the shit sucks, then we're not gonna work out. Like, I can't depend on you to defend me. Like, I almost feel like you'll get your ass whooped if I need you to, like, back me up. Like, not even back me up. If I need you to stand forefront, like, I feel like you can't do that if you're too busy crying about what the hell I just said. Like, you can't be soft like that. I don't want a soft man. That's not what is in my, that's not attractive. Like, it sounds like a crybaby. Like, I'm not saying men don't have feelings. I'm not saying don't seek to understand. Are there women out here that beat down on men? Absolutely, and continuously do it. But in my perspective, I don't want a crybaby man that can't take criticism, whether it be from me or from his friends. Like, you got to be able to withstand that. And if you can't handle criticism, then that means you can't handle being rejected. And if you can't handle rejection, there's a problem. Like, you're never going to progress anywhere. Like, you have to fail to move forward. Like, you got to know where you need to work. And if you can't do that, then you have no vision, you have no path. I can't trust you. We're done. Like, I can't do it at all.
All right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead. Follow.
Talking about criticism at the same level of what this video sort of went into. Questions for you, Mike. Have you ever noticed yourself doing the same thing with the guy that you're with now? Have you ever done it, and to what extent?
He'll ask me for my opinion. I don't like just, see something and automatically just pop off, because I just don't feel like it's respectful. Like, unless it's something that's detrimental to our health or anything like that, our living situation, then I feel like if it's going to jeopardize my safety and well-being, then yes, say something. But if it's something revolving around his plans and his vision, I don't just go straight into the criticism part and be like, hammering down. Now, if you ask me, like, hey, what did you think about this when I did this? You giving me free range to say, like, hey, I think that was stupid. Like, this is why I think it was stupid. You could have did this better this way. But I'm not out here just, yelling at him and pointing the finger.
Yeah. So what this video is talking about is not a reality in your current relationship. There's a construction. Okay, cool. Perfect. That's all I needed. Well, it's going to be important later on.
All right, no worries. Thank you so much. I'll pass it to you, Gabby. Gabby, what's your reaction to the video? Some truth to it, or do you think that's some crybaby shit, like Mai said?
I'm glad you passed it to me after Mai, because sometimes me and Mai are like so head on in the same direction, and in other ways we are polar opposites, and it always cracks me up because it's always a topic like this one. And I believe men deserve a place where they can come be soft and emotional outside of the world. I feel like they have to be tough all day outside in public. And I'm not saying that, no, I don't want a crybaby, but as I've said on previous pods, I think that men deserve to be able to be a little bit more vulnerable with their partner than they are with the rest of the world. And I say that specifically because, especially as we're all people of color, right, in this room, we know the most what it is like for our men to have to carry so many burdens and so much. They have to be in so many bags and, just be able to do everything. And they have to be able to shoulder everything. and then do it with a smile on their face too. And it's just not fair in the society we live in for, again, like I said, specifically the men of color who have to wear these burdens, to have nowhere to be able to break down, to have nowhere to be able to bounce their ideas off of or the emotions off of without feeling judged. So I absolutely am wholeheartedly gung-ho for this idea of men having a place to not only be vulnerable, but a partner who is going to hear them without verbally abusing them. I don't come from a family with the best relationship with words. So I personally know how even the simplest of words can stick with you and traumatize you. And I think we definitely need to be holding ourselves accountable when we have conversations with men and try to understand that they wear a lot of hats and need to be able to hear your opinion without feeling bullied, or hear your correction without feeling demeaned for maybe not feeling the same way that you do, or maybe not understanding your course of thinking. It creates for a healthier relationship when we can have honest conversations that don't involve belittling each other.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Gabby. Appreciate that. I'll pass it to you, Jess. Jess, what do you think about that video? Do you think do you see some truth into it, or maybe you disagree?
No, I definitely see some truth in it too. Like, I can definitely agree with what she was saying too. Like, I think that because it almost wraps into, like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So yeah, obviously telling somebody, confronting them is never going to do it. You know, you're going to get a confrontational response is what you're getting out of that. Comparing someone to something too, you're already setting it off in a negative tone. So this person's never going to match up to what your expectations are. And then on top of that, that's where resentment comes in. So I think definitely, yeah, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I think now there were certain things, like I remember my ex's mom her response to certain things would be, well, what did you say to get him to respond like that? And which I always felt was triggering, you know. It's like, well, why does it have to be something that I said? Why can't it be, you know, he did this and this caused this? That's what a lot of, I think, the miscommunication between couples are. It's a action and a reaction. So, you know, it's like if either party doesn't have a good, healthy way of communicating, and it's just attacking in one sense or the other, then nothing's going to get done. But I think if you come, yes, with compassion, you come with a place of concern of why are you feeling this way, or why are you, you know, retracting yourself from me? Like, what is causing you to behave like this? Like, I think you have to come from a place of concern and compassion. But if the communication already is off, you know, how you're approaching the situation, the relationship is doomed from the start. That conversation is doomed to begin with. So I think that's something I think you just have to really tune into how we say things, you know, like communicating. I've said this before on a past pod. It's like, I think that I'm a great communicator, but I also know that I'm an over communicator. Being an over communicator does not make you a good communicator. I think it definitely, you have to weigh out your battles, you know. Is what I'm saying right now going to help the situation, or am I essentially making all the decisions and this person is agreeing who has absolutely no need, want, or desire to agree to what you're saying, you know? So I think not just communicating, but you need to be heard, and you need to make sure that your partner is heard as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Jess. I'll pass it to you, Milka, and then I'll come to you, Yaz. But Milka, what's your response to the video? Is some truth to it, or do you disagree?
I think it's both. The reason being is because, say a situation does come up for the first time and you have that communicative, and how Jess said, it's how you say it and how you deliver the message to your partner. Now, if we're going to resurface the same situation again, okay, now there's a problem. Where did we lose communication? And I think it also has to do with what Jess said as well, over communicating. Did I over communicate the first time? And if I did, what got lost in translation? But then again, if it happens a third time, clearly there's something wrong. Clearly, other things need to be looked at, and that there is a there's a deeper problem to why this keeps occurring. So I do see that there's two sides to it.
Okay. All right, Milka, thank you so much. And I'll pass it to Yas before I pass it to the fellas. Yas, what's your response to that video? Is it truth to it or do you disagree?
There's truth to it. Definitely the comparing is something I used to do. And because the guy I'm talking to, I told him, like, I'm not a woman to be like, yeah, I'm perfect, this is how I am. No, I told him straight up, like, I'm still dealing with certain things, like this trauma and stuff. And he decided to, continue to pursue, but it's the patience of like my trauma being like, yeah, but this is what happened last time. And he would be let me tell you, I have never had a man be so patient. He would be so patient and literally talk me through it. And I've never had that. And that's what makes him different. But definitely the comparing is true. And it's something I definitely have to change. And I'm just very, if you're watching me, grateful that you literally have patience with me. But other than that, I'm the type of person, the tone bothers me. So I can't have a problem with a tone and then give him a tone. That's just not fair. So when I do approach, my man with a situation, he can say this: I am very careful with my words. That is something he always compliments me on, because it's just like, I don't want, if he was to come to me about something, I would want the same thing. I can't be one-sided. I can't want this and then treat you like crap. Like, it's both sides. And so when I approach him, I'm so careful that sometimes he's like, just tell me, babe, like, you got like, just tell me. But I'm just because I'm like, I don't want to belittle you. I make sure I confirm that. I don't want to belittle you. I just want to make sure, one, I understand. And I'm trying to communicate, how I feel without making you feel bad. And so I communicate those things first. I don't want to make you feel bad. Like, you are still the man. This is just how I feel. And obviously, like, I'll be soft-spoken about it and stuff, because tone does matter. A lot of times if I'm told something a certain way, I don't want to hear. If I'm told certain things a certain way, I don't want to hear it. If it's like you pointing the finger and you talking to me all tough, I don't want to hear it. But if you approach me, I'm now understanding what you're saying to me. So I expect, what I expect from him, I should be able to, what I ask for, I should also be able to give back to him. So I just feel like, men should have a place to be vulnerable. And if you're his wife, you're his woman, you should be that safe space for him. And that's why a lot of times, if you belittle your man when he does become vulnerable, is why he starts treating you like crap. Because now you turned over and you're like, oh, but now you acting like and it's like, okay, what do you want? Do you want a man to be vulnerable with you and communicate well with you? Or do you want a man to treat you like crap? Because you can't have both.
Okay. All right. No worries. Yas, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much, ladies. Appreciate your feedback. I see Mrs. She Said on the live chat. Hey, good to see you in the live chat. But as always, I do appreciate you guys on the live chat. If you do want to jump on, I'll pan out the links to the description below. But I'll pass it to the fellas. All right. Paulo, I'll pass it to you. I know you there's a lot of triggering words that were said for you, but let me pass it to you. What's your response to what the ladies were saying?
There's two parts. So you understand my sentiment towards that video. It's there's a level of truth to it. There's a level of truth in terms of the behavior that's being described, but what it fails to do, and again, I'm going to have to pardon my ignorance on this one because I don't understand the full context of that video. I don't know whether it's a one-piece content or it's been taken out of a full video. But based on what I saw, it is some soft-ass bullshit. And it's soft in the sense of, the reason why I asked that question earlier on is that the demeanor of the man, the character of the man, oftentimes don't tolerate that sort of behavior right from the get, so the relationship don't turn into this toxic sort of, well, you know what I said, in criticism all towards the man when he fails. And Maya is the perfect example of that, and that's why I asked her the question. These conversations, when it comes to leaders and men that we describe as what we've deemed as good men, don't tolerate that sort of behavior all throughout the relationship. It's often addressed very earlier on, and the relationship is built based on a level of communication where it's constructive to the relationship rather than being this he said, she said, whatever. Ladies, the vulnerability portion of conversation when it comes to men is a false idea that has been planted in women to see it as a way of being someone's peace. You should never be someone's peace, but you should also not be undesirable in the way that you behave in relationships. There's not a dichotomy in there. Being his peace is not a dichotomy of, okay, then I should be undesirable, I should be, combative and all these things. A man should never find peace in a woman. The reason for that is the idea of protection. If you want a leader, that man is going to look at chaos and go, I am the last line of defense for my family. Should I break down, my whole family is going to break down. And if he comes to you breaking in terms of vulnerability, the idea that you disregard his vulnerability is not the root cause for everything happening after that. The root cause is him being vulnerable. That's the root cause. And this is why I have such a hard time listening to conversation from both men and women who say this rhetoric of, as a woman, you should be his peace. You should be the place where he comes to you and he's soft and he's vulnerable. Fuck that shit. He's got other men to do that shit with. I saw a comment, go to the gym, find mentors, find other men who can look into you and go, I understand your plight, brother, but this shit will pass. Let's figure this shit out together. Right? So, again, I hate that video with a passion, and I hate that video with a passion in the sense that we're training men to be soft men. And the idea of women shouldn't say X, Y, and Z to their men gives me an indicator that that relationship has already failed before it even got to that point. The fact that you as a woman is having this sort of attitude behavior in a relationship, long-term relationship I might add, means it's been tolerated for its extended period of time, that now this is your default reaction to how he is behaving. Again, I have to remind you, the type of men that we discuss in these podcasts, the idea of a leader, the idea of a good man, will not tolerate that right from the gate. And you will have a conversation of how to address certain things in relationship. Please don't say vulnerable again. I've already lost my beer.
All right, just the V word. We just shortened it, the V word. All right, so thank you so much, Paulo. Appreciate it. Pass it to you, Jerk. Jerk, what do you think? What's your response to the ladies, what they said, and in the video as well?
Well, like I said, men and women communicate different. So, like, me personally, just be direct. Like, your tone and all that, that's not going to hurt me. So I have a lot of sentiments like what Paulo was saying, and even where it's just like, I feel if you build that trust with somebody, we already know, like, I'm not going to throw a hissy fit if you have a different tone or whatever. If I'm asking you for some feedback, I could take it. So I think, once you get over that hurdle with somebody, all this stuff should already be resolved. And, the video has some truths in there as far as where he was talking about the respect. You definitely got to respect somebody. So you never should be bringing up old relationships, things of that nature and stuff like that. And I don't know how many C's he crammed in that little clip. It seems like he found like every word that started with a C and he merged it into that clip. So that was definitely awkward. But no, it's just definitely have that respect. But I also be direct, because a lot of times I think when people have to smooth something over with somebody, it's almost like the message that you're trying to relay to that person is going to get lost to a certain degree. And it's just like, if they're that soft where they just can't take your feedback and this person's with you, then that might be a red flag, honestly. Because like with my wife, it's just like, hey, give it to me. Let's be direct. That's actually effective communication. Like at my work, I'm like bluffs. I have everybody write their email structure like that. It's like bottom line up front, get to the point. We don't need like real long emails. That way we could decipher through it, solve the crisis, whatever, and we could move on and not jam up our emails. So yeah, I like direct communication. I'm not gonna, fold up in a fetal position if somebody like be's a little direct and has some honesty with it. Cause we always say in these like conversations, we want honesty. So if I'm sitting there and I'm like trying to control what you're saying and you're giving me that feedback and, I want a smart chick. I want a chick that's going to come into the situation and be my eyes and ears and, give me that different perspective. So it's just like, if I can't tolerate how you're saying it, I want to control the message, I'm not being honest with myself and saying I want that honesty and I want that feedback. So yeah, it was definitely a weak message, I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jerk. Let's pass it back to the ladies. Ladies, I know you got the...
and I don't want to save space. I'm with Paulo on that. Let's add that in there.
Yeah, ladies, what's the response with what the fellas are saying? If you're asking your man to be vulnerable, then you're kind of conditioning him to be weak. What do you think? What do you think about that? Anybody want to respond to that?
Absolutely. I don't find it attractive if you want to cry on my shoulder. Like, I don't need you to cry. I need you to go fight my battles. Like, that's what I need you to do.
Okay. Gabby,
but to be fair, I think Gabby, what they're trying to communicate is like trying to be nice. So I get what they're saying, but yeah, we don't. I might be off though.
I have a question for the men.
Go ahead.
So if you want your woman to come direct to you, are you going to come direct back? Like, are you going to be like, that was stupid? Are you going to give the energy she gives you?
No. So one of the things that we often say to a lot of men is that your standard and value should dictate how you behave. I mentioned earlier on, women are de facto leaders in relationship, because oftentimes when we hear conversation around relationship and breakups is that men have been reactionary to how women behave. And that's an idea I can't get along with. What are your values and what are your standards? Those things should dictate how you behave. So in terms of communication, oftentimes we might let it out, we might let it slip, somewhat direct comment on something that happened and how you behave. But we often pad it with some sense of humor. You'll often find us very direct, but oftentimes when we slip, we pad it with a bit of humor and said, look, I may have gone way too far with that shit, but the idea is I'm not trying to attack you. So comms in the ways that relationship, and Mike can speak to this because it sounds like you're in one, is never the idea of it's a dichotomy. Should I come to you direct? I should be disrespectful. I should do all these undesirable behavior. So no, I get that that's a reality for some people, but a man should never allow his emotions to be dictated by how a woman says things to him, but by his values and his principles.
But yeah, just to answer your question, I would never match energy with nobody like that. Like I said, I would have how I wanted to receive, communication, but I do understand like men and women are different. So I will give it my communication differently. So I'm always like even kill. And if I'm like in I'll say a bad space where I'm like a little irritated, I'm gonna go, like I think Gas Mask or Lord Punisher said it. I'm gonna go hit the gym, blow off some steam, and then I'll be like, hey, let's talk about what happened earlier. And I'm still gonna be even kill. So yeah, I don't never like wig out like that.
Okay. All right.
But Will, real quick, I did want to go back to the video. There was one other piece that I did want to address. I did like the part where he was talking about asking questions. Because I do think like sometimes, when people ask questions, that could help you come to a solution, and maybe I could uncover something, like a couple times people came to me and was asking questions, and I did realize like, shit, I was in the wrong, I did miss something in that scenario. So I do think that is a pretty good tactic to use, to kind of help somebody solve like a problem and stuff. So definitely you shouldn't be over the top, disrespectful, comparing relationships, but that's a great tactic to use. Like, hey, why did you do this and stuff? And it could help, get to that solution, and it could highlight some problems maybe you weren't thinking and stuff. So I just wanted to go back to that.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for sharing that, Jerk. But ladies, anybody else want to add on, or before we move on to the next one?
I think I can just respond real quick to what Sophisticated said. It's not necessarily about being nice. It's about human decency in regards to, like Yas said, I'm not going to talk to you in a manner that I don't want to be talked to. I'm not going to use words with you that I don't like being used with me. So I won't use the word because I don't want to trigger Paulo. But at the same time, like, I get it. Like, I get it. Men are supposed to be, a bit tougher and be able to lead with their emotions, even by example. Like, in some ways, men teach us how to have better control with our own emotions, right? So it's not that like I said, my nose, I don't want no crybaby, but you could cry around me. And that's where I feel like my disconnect is, I guess, in regards to where you guys stand on it. It's not that I want a crybaby.
I agree with you, Gabby. I agree.
Yeah, it's like, it's not even that I necessarily have to be your peace, right? But if you need a place of peace, I should be that.
Right,
Like,
right.
Like, if you're going through something. Exactly. You should be able to come to me.
You
not
should be able to. I think
be
that's clear.
Exactly. Not saying that I have to be, not saying that I expect you to come in the house every day with a bag full of freaking tears. Because at that point, that's where I am more and you lose me. Like, sir, I'm still from Oakland. I need you to have a little bit more aggression than I do. That's not okay. But at the same time, with the world being the way it is, with men having all of the things that they have on their back, I don't want no soft crybaby. But if you do have a day where it's just too much, I feel like we should be a place for you to be able to come decompress, and that's all it is for me. I don't think I don't think you have to be soft to be in touch with your emotions. I just don't. I feel like, if anything, you're more of a well-rounded person if you can be soft, but maybe choose not to. Or if you can have empathy in a situation and present that while still being able to hold your composure. Like, I think when we say we're okay with a man having emotions, some men hear that we want a man who's gonna be like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do, babe? Help me pay the rent. Go get on the corner and make it work. Like, that's not what we mean. But we mean more so like, hey, let's say you did have a rough day. Let's say you lost a family member. Let's say you have been all month just having to take loss after loss because outside forces are making things more complicated for you than usual. All I'm saying is, if you choose to lose your shit today, you should be able to do so safely with me without feeling judged by your male counterparts or your boss or the other people who expect you to always 100% have your chest poked out.
And to that, we say to those men, rise to the occasion, goddammit. Rise. So I think, so it's a fair request. It's a fair request that as men, when we're battered and bruised in terms of our interaction with the world, that we have some level of conversation. That's not an unfair request. And oftentimes in relationship, that does happen. But it doesn't come to you in the sense of how it's been described as soft. Usually it's a passing comment. Damn, what a fucked up week it's been, babe. Let's go and have a date. Let's book the kids with the grandparents. Let's go out for a couple of hours and just catch up and do those things. Oftentimes that's what it looks like. It's not this boo-hoo, my life is shit and nothing just goes on right and I need you here right now. It's none of that. And if you do see that, I highly suggest that you refer him to a man that is the opposite, because he needs that leadership. Trust is an important component, and trust is not earned, it's built. And it's built based on consistency of decision making that a man makes with full conviction. It doesn't necessarily have to be the right one. Oftentimes there's some wrongs thrown in there, but he's full of conviction in the sense, I make this decision, and therefore should it turn to shit, I take full responsibility for it. You'll never have to face the full brunt or the aftermath of it. Oftentimes that's how trust is built within a relationship. The idea of safe space is something I'm against when it comes to men. It always should be a space where it's encourages bravery, because bravery is the draw of strength from nothing at all. But you say, I'm going to rise to the occasion. I don't know where I'm going to find the strength, but I'm going to do it anyway. So again, Gabby, it's not an unfair request that these conversations should be had, and I encourage men to do it. the idea of soft bullshit, whatever it is, I should run to my woman when life gets hard. That's the idea that I'm against. You're a man. Stand tall. Rise to the occasion, because you have all the tool sets and the toolkits within you. And if you don't, find other men who have gone through similar route or have gathered enough experience to say, let me offer you some piece of advice. Let's go to the gym. Let's go for a run or whatever. But when we come back, we're going to resolve this issue, because yeah, great, you can cry and all of that shit, but your problem is still going to be there. It's not going to escape you. And oftentimes, it's problems that don't escape us that really moves men. And I say this to my son on small occasions. Crying about it's not going to solve your problem. It's going to be there after you cry. So what do we need to do now? Rather than wasting that precious time that you have now, or that emotion, put it into something that will gather the solutions for you. You need that bit of emotion. You need that bit of instability, that anxiety. All of those things are good as fuel, because you're going to hit that problem with a lot of tenacity that is oftentimes required to resolve that problem. Crying often dials down that emotions, and oftentimes it prolongs the problem. So that's where I am. And look, I may come off as a brute, but that's what men need. You need that bit of fire in you, oftentimes with the problems that you need to resolve. So again,
Gabby, you're an enabler.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm hearing it now. She's an enabler. You're going to set yourself up for failure. You keep this up, Gabby.
I've heard plenty of men say what Paulo said in a much more aggressive and, in my opinion, harmful way. I don't think you're coming off as a brute at all. I think you're coming off as a man who knows what he wants and knows what he expects from his brotherly counterparts. I do think that, like Lord Punisher said in the comments, I might be the 2% of women who feel men need that space. And I'm aware that I'm very much often alone in a lot of my ideals. And I'm aware that a lot of that has to do with my spiritual connection to my ancestors and things of that nature. So I get it that not all women have the understanding or the ideas that I have. I think more so it's just all about doing what works for you and your partner, and not necessarily generalizing what you think each woman or each man needs to be doing. I think if we were more receptive to people doing what works for them, specifically based on who they are and how they're raised and how they want to live their life, these conversations would go a lot easier, which is why I say I don't think Paulo is personally coming off as a brute. I've heard people say what he just said in a much more harmful way. So I don't think you should tell yourself that you're a brute. You're just honest with your own opinions.
All right, no worries.
Real quick, Will. No, I was just gonna say, Gabby. Like I said, you're just a good person. So I mean, don't take it hard. But I just think like what Paulo's trying to also communicate, like guys, man, that have their stuff together and that have the leadership and stuff that we talk about over here. Typically they're gonna come with a solution and something already worked out, because a lot of times we live in our head, and I'm already like working out the solution. So like I said, if say like we were together and I'll come to you, I'm like, hey man, here's my plan, what do you think about this? And then you'll help me fine tune it. So that's why I think a lot of guys like us will incorporate the female in their life. That's how we will have that communication and stuff. So we're typically not gonna be sitting there whining about stuff. Not saying that we don't have emotions, but the way we kind of like solve our problems and harness those emotions, it's like putting things into motion, because we understand the responsibility of a family where if we stop and things kind of get out of hand, we're going to impact you. That's going to put a burden on you. If you have kids, that's going to push the burden on the kids. So we kind of come assessing that already, and then like I said, we'll come with the solution, but we are definitely going to get that feedback from you guys, because like I said, if you're with this certain type of guy, he's already going to understand your intellect, and you can also problem solve to a certain degree also. So that's why we kind of push back on the safe space and stuff. It's just like,
and I also do agree with him on that, though, that when you see men who, and I'm not saying this because I agree with most of society's views about women who are single mothers and raise their sons, but I will say that you do often see that men who have been raised by a single mom do have issues with being coddled by women, and that holding them back. So I absolutely do agree that Paulo definitely has some very important points in, on that subject, specifically that men absolutely do not necessarily need to be coddled all the time and told that that this is a safe space, because they do need to learn to toughen up, and they do need to learn to push through and persevere through. But I do also, on the flip side of that, where my perspective comes in, it's just that society is always yelled at them. So maybe it would be nice if they had a place where they could be compressed. But I can see his point of view as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Paulo. And I just wanted to add one piece, and I think I heard this on a previous podcast. I think it's a different way to explain the conversation we're having. But here's a question I want to ask the ladies. Say you had a child, right? Say you had a child, and you want your child, this is a child you love, but you want your child to be strong, to be relentless, to be disciplined, to be to be persistent. If you want your child to have those qualities, what kind of life do you want to? What kind of life does that child have to live to experience to develop to become that type of person? Is it a hard life, a tough life, or an easy life?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Like, just what do you?
Okay. So for me, I have two boys. They're complete opposite.
Yeah.
My oldest, he's very sensitive, very the V word,
Yeah.
and I need him to be tough. Like, come on, kid. Like, you're 6. We don't need to cry.
Yeah.
Let's just get back up and do it again. Like, we got this.
Yeah.
My other son, he's the complete opposite. He's tough, motivated. He uses aggression to filter his motivation.
Yeah.
And I live in a calm, mellow home. So I don't really think it has to do as much as the home. It has to do with their outer surroundings and the influences that they have outside of the home. Because as a single mother, I could do all the nurturing and loving that I want, but both of my boys are complete opposite.
Yeah. What I'm saying is just the ladies in general. Like, when you see people who are very relentless, persistent, like driven, ambitious, unstoppable mindset, like the mental fortitude, mentality, I'm never giving up, if they just persevere through anything in their life. Those types of people, do they usually live a very easy life, or they usually live a very hard life that made them to become that type of person in general? What's the response?
I think they had to have lived a hard life in order to give
exactly, right? Yeah.
this type of, persistence to strive to do better, to not continue to struggle, to not make the same mistakes. A lot of times that is what builds the character. That is how people, build that resilience and that strength behind it. Not saying that people who have had an easier life, but if you don't know a struggle, or if you don't know what it's like to be put in a corner or in a situation, you don't even tap into your greatest potential. Like, I call myself the comeback kid all the time. I mean, life has happened so many times, it's handed me several ass whoopings, and come back, I don't know why I did that, but you do. You come back a little bit stronger, you come back a little bit wiser. But I mean, I think it's that's what builds the character out of you, for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah, they were talking about on that podcast, right? When you tend to see people who are very persistent, are very driven, they don't give up. Usually those people, they tend to live a very difficult life, and that's why they turn out that way. And when you see people who are very weak, very sensitive, and they give up easily when things go hard, they tend to live a very sheltered, easy life. So they never deal with any kind of hardship experiences. So all we're saying is, when it comes to your relationship as a man, oftentimes if you want your man to make sure he maintains that strong mindset and behavior and values, you can't make it too easy for him. And sometimes I think when we talk about vulnerability, for a lot of women, they tend to put their men in situations to kind of, and not allow them to push and empower themselves to overcome the obstacles in their life, because it put them in a position where they can use it as an excuse to not figure out the problem. So sometimes, I know Mai said it, like that tough love, but we're not saying like, we can't have a respectful conversation, communication. But I think sometimes when you make your man to be vulnerable in situations when there's an opportunity for him, like Paula Vesta said, to rise up, but then you give him the space not to rise up and just say, you know what, you can just cry and not do anything. I think a lot of times you kind of put your man to condition them. I think sometimes you kind of condition them not to overcome and become weaker. So that's all we're saying. So I just heard that on the podcast. So I think it just wanted to add on to what you guys already said. But I do want to move on to another topic. I want to bring it up to you guys. Like I told you guys before, I want to bring up topics that's men and women are having a hard conversation, or they're trying to figure out who takes more of the accountability on. Is it the man's fault? Is it the woman's fault? I saw this one on X. This conversation, I'm gonna put it on the screen, but I want to ask the ladies real quick. If you're a woman, if you no longer want to have sex with your man, is it your fault or is it the man's fault?
It's definitely the female's fault. Sorry. Thought I was on mute.
What do you? All right, so there was because one of the biggest topics I saw online when it comes to relationships, a lot of guys are talking about the lack of consistent sex from their women. We all on the panel understand how important sex is, especially from the men's perspective. But I want to put it on the screen. I'm just gonna read this tweet. This woman had a hot take. A lot of men were upset of what she said. But I'm just gonna put it on the screen. I'm gonna read it out for you guys, and I'm gonna pass it back to you guys. What do you guys think about this? So let me put it on the screen, and then let me know what you guys think. So there it is. So this is what she said. Jennifer Late, she tweeted this. She said, "Hate to be the one to tell you, but if your wife or girlfriend treats sex as a chore, it's because you're bad at it. Things that are pleasurable, enjoyable are not chores. If you as a man treat sex like a service you're owed with no regard to your partner's pleasure, yes, this includes getting them in the mood. Of course, it will become a chore and it will be your fault. There are a lot of reasons for low libido or lulls in the bedroom, some of which are perfectly normal. But in light of these issues or in their absence, your approach to sex is selfish. You're going to create a sex as a chore dynamic in your relationship. And totally normal. However, a guy being pushy and selfish and trying to get duty sex from you during that time can lead to the dynamic and cause issues that would have otherwise resolved with time and patience. All right. So that was just something I did see online. It was a big conversation. There was a lot of conversation between back and forth. There's a lot of men are saying that when it comes to sex, if you're a woman, your wife, it's her duty to make sure that you guys have sex, to make sure to maintain that relationship. But a lot of women are saying, a lot of what the women are saying is, if the women are no longer enjoying the sex or they find it as a chore, they don't look forward to it. Hate to say it, but it's your fault as a man. That's what the women are saying. So that whole tweet was causing so much controversy back and forth between the men and the women. So we do understand it's important. Sex is a beautiful thing. That's how we create children, but it's also something that you share intimately with your wife and your significant other. But what's your response to that tweet? Because a lot of guys are saying they find themselves in marriages and long-term relationships, and there's a whole Reddit thread. I know Jerk have seen it, but there's a lot of guys are saying, you know what, my girlfriend, my wife, they don't want to have sex with me. I'm trying to tell her, hey, what can we do? She no longer wants to. I have to force it. I have to initiate it every single time. She never wants to initiate it. I feel like she's just doing it because I tell her not, because I'm telling her to do it, not because she wants to do it. And it's causing a problem, a conflict in the relationship where it's starting to push them away from each other. So, what's your response to that tweet? I want to hear from the ladies. What do you guys think about it? Is it if you no longer desire your man, is it his responsibility to make sure that he becomes the type of man that you desire sexually and you want to have sex with him, but he starts becoming complacent and falling off in a relationship that that's going to affect your mood of want to have sex with him? Do you think that's all entirely on him or entirely on you, or maybe it's something you have to share between the man and the woman? I'll start with you, Gabby. What do you think?
First of all, I think her husband needs to divorce her for embarrassing him like that on the internet. Because why did she just out him like that? Oh, that was so wrong. You do not out your public. When women get on the internet with subliminals like that, they're absolutely talking about their own situation. So she is trifling for outing him like that, for one. I have definitely had partners who didn't know what they were doing in the bedroom. That did not stop me from being unsatisfied while still trying to be, okay? So I can't speak for, I don't know anyone who would just give up. Educate him on what to maybe try that does not work for you. I don't know, try other, there are too many options out there for you to engage your partner in sexual activity before you just decide to give up willingly and let that person suffer. I have a very high sex drive, so for me, that's not an option. There is no, we're not having sex. At that point, I'm reevaluating you. Because I wouldn't even want to put a man through that. I'm a woman. I don't want to go through it either. So I personally don't feel like it's okay to be in a committed relationship, married, on your way to marriage, whatever the case may be. Unless obviously you are someone who is practicing abstinence before marriage, by all means do it, you get it how you live. But if you're in a committed relationship that you are aware that you and the other person are expecting sex on a regular basis and have a schedule or have set days, if you plan on skipping one of them days, something needs to have been conversed before about prior. That person needs to be aware that you are unsatisfied, and you and that person need to have gone through serious conversation about how you can fix that. What things are you open to trying, exploring to see if that can maybe change the dynamic? Are you willing to sit down and maybe I point out some things and, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that? Because if you're not willing to have those conversations, that would be the only reason I could understand not wanting to continue to be with someone. But I'm not staying in any relationship where I'm not sexually fulfilled. If we're still together, I don't care if the sex is ass, we're figuring it out. And until we do figure it out, apparently one of us is going to be somewhat unpleased. That's
Okay.
where I stand on
Fair
it.
enough. All right. Thank you so
Gabby
much.
said, fuck that safe space now. You saw she got rid of that shit. Vulnerability is no longer exists right now.
All I'm saying is I'm going to get you, sir. And if you don't know how to make sure I'm getting it, then that's a conversation we'll have. But completely depriving you is not okay, because I don't want to be deprived. And the moment you start acting weird and I got to question whether or not I'm doing something wrong instead of you telling me about it, that's going to create a problem for me as someone who likes to have sex. So I wouldn't do that to you either.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Gabby. Let me pass it to you, Jess. Jess, what's your reaction to that tweet? Agree, disagree? What do you think?
I agree. I think it's one of those things. I mean, both partners, you have to feel desirable. You have to have that attraction. You have to have that want. Um, Now, there's going to be times where, like, your sexual energy or your sexual libido is going to be very different. I mean, I know for myself, like, I got on anxiety meds. That shit ruined everything. Made me calm, but a little too calm. So, I mean, that's something that, like, you have to communicate those things with your partner. And if that's not something that's working for you, or it's causing, like, for you to change your desire, or, um, if you're with somebody and the physical attraction changes, I mean, those are something that, like, if you don't communicate that, and if you don't work through that problem, you don't talk about it, this is exactly when, resentment happens. People step out. So you have to fix it. You have to fix it before the problem becomes, unfixable. And now two people are in something that, you're essentially a roommate. And I've lived in that situation too, where we just share a room, we share a bed together, but there's no intimacy, or even if there is intimacy, it's just pure sex. And, I mean, that's almost worse. So I think as a woman, you have to know, obviously, yourself. You should know yourself beforehand, but some people don't get that opportunity. I mean, I was with my daughter's dad for over 12 years. He was the only person I was with for that amount of time. So it kind of was like, well, you either learn it together or you figure it out. And unfortunately, you you do figure that out with somebody else. And so, I mean, that's kind of, I think the communication has to be there. If you don't communicate what makes you happy or what fulfills you or what satisfies you, then you're going to be in it for a very lonely ride, pun intended.
All right, thank you so much, Jess. All right, let me pass it to you, Mai. Mai, what do you think with that tweet? Do you think there's truth to it? Agree, disagree? What do you think?
I know a couple people dealing with situations like that right now. Like they're not married, but they're in a situation where they're not having sex. And with women, when you stop having sex, that's a red flag. Like if your woman doesn't want to have sex with you, there's only so much more time that you got of her being present with you before she does go seek someone else. I just don't know who I would put that on because it could be so many things. Like, are you lacking in the security that you should be offering as a man, or is she not comfortable within herself? Like, there's so many factors that go into that. I wouldn't know who to say or how to say like whose fault it would be. Some men don't prioritize sex because they're busy with other stuff, and some women don't enjoy sex because maybe they never experienced sex that was enjoyable with someone. Like there's just so many factors that could be into this. Me personally, I don't think me and my man will ever have that problem, but I don't know because I have married friends. They gotten into the funks where they don't have sex anymore, and it's either because they've emotionally disconnected, like the woman no longer feels secure or safe because maybe he lost his job and she's paying all the bills. Like there's so many things that can contribute to a woman not having sex with her man.
Hey, Mai, quick question: the friends that
Yeah.
you know, like, what's the longest? Like like they never had sex. The friends that you know, like, what's the longest they've gone?
I got a friend right now. It's been like a year.
Damn.
But,
Okay.
but she cheating on him.
Oh, okay.
she cheating on him. Like, I'm sorry, dude. If you watch this, you know, and you know damn well she cheating on you. Stop it.
Okay.
Hey, Ma, you want to give us their names? No, I'm joking.
No.
No.
Right, we might need to find his brother a new girlfriend. 'Cause, geez.
That's not my
All right.
problem though. If you allow a woman to cheat on you and you continue to stay and you know that is your fault. That is your
Oh, yeah.
You have lost your friend completely. I have no respect for you because you have no respect for yourself. So if you're gonna allow that, that is on you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mai. Let me pass it to you, Milka. Milka, what do you think? That tweet. Do you agree? Disagree? Some truth to it?
There's truth to it. I think it, like, basically what the rest of the ladies did say, there's more of an underlying issue to it. Like there would be months where me and my ex-husband, we wouldn't do anything, but the issue was he was sleeping with somebody else. He wanted to be with somebody else. I would try to find ways on my own to communicate to see, what can I do differently in the bedroom. But he never wanted to have that conversation. So there's always an underlying issue.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Always a deeper issue. All right. And I'll pass it to Giaz. What's your response to that tweet? Agree? Disagree?
I can agree. So with my ex, my child's father, we would have months without having sex and stuff, and it would be like, first, I don't know, I can only speak for myself. I leave first emotionally. So if I don't want to have, like, if you're initiating it because you don't want nobody else to have me, even though we haven't spoken in weeks, because we won't talk for weeks, it will be a roommate stage, but because you feel like I've been distanced, because men get scared. Oh, wait, she not talking. And she used to go crazy. And she used to ask me, now she just not talking. What if she's getting it somewhere else? Because men pride themselves in that. Men pride themselves in sex. Like you ain't going nowhere. Because, I can really, right? So a lot of men do. I'm not saying all y'all, but a lot of men pride themselves in sex. And so when they feel like their woman is this and they feel like, one, she's cheating. And in reality, it's no, you treat me like crap. And now I don't even get wet for you. Like, I'm just, like I'm dry. Now it hurts. Like, oh, and now I'm faking my moans. So yeah. So like we leave emotionally first. That's the only way. If I don't give it to you, it's because I can speak for I left emotionally. You threw me to the side for too long that now I'm so used to not having it that I'm like, whatever. And I don't just give you easy access like that when you want to, knowing that you've been doing your stuff on the side. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Yaz. Let me pass it to the fellas. Jurek, Paulo, I know you guys are both married, but what's your response to that whole thread? A lot of guys are saying that their significant other, whether it's a relationship or marriage, no longer desires to have sex with them, and they feel like that's causing a rift in their relationship. And the ladies are saying it's their fault. What do you start with you, Paulo? What do you think?
Again, the one-sided sort of pointing fingers, regardless of where it's coming from, is not going to help the relationship. I think everyone sort of touched on multiple things that are true. Sex is one of those expectations that should be voiced right from the get, especially from us as men. A majority of the time, it's us who initiate it, and that speaks of biology. All of these conversations, it speaks of biology. The fact that we have testosterone in our body that produce sperm on a 24-hour cycle means that the body is incentivizing us to have sex. So it should be managed right from the early get. The other thing too is that if we look at our diet, now we need to go back to basics because all of these things are hormones in the body. The intimacy part of it is just built upon that. And we go and look at the way that we are physically and health-wise, we aren't living in sort of any healthy metric whatsoever. So how are you going to force the body to do something that it's not even being catered to? So that's one aspect of it. And I think we're ignorant to the sense that we use data in medical terms to have these controversial ideas about what the world is doing and elites and whatnot. But when it comes to human basic function of sex, we don't use the same sort of level of understanding. So that's one part of it. The other side of it is that if we look at how relationships mostly form, the intimacy there usually followed a process. And it followed a very flirtatious process. The fact that that's no longer existing in relationship speaks to whoever initiated it and how that process was in the first place. So the breakdown is either one. It's two people who no longer have reverence towards each other and no longer communicates. So that's the first breakdown. And then rather than saying, look, this is causing a rift, we need to address this. I love you and there's no one else I'd rather be. So we need to figure this shit out. It's but she's not giving me sex and we're feeling bitter. We're not addressing it. We're not having any conversation about it. We now run to social media to express out. We're fucking adults, to be quite simply honest. We're adults. And I say this to my children, use your words. If something is not pleasing you, if there's things that are causing a rift, use your words, address it, speak about it. The fact that we've grown beyond the ages of 20s and 30s and we're still not addressing a lot of these components that are very important, as it's clearly stated by a lot of these men, to the relationship, and we're not addressing it, what are we doing? Do we need to go back to preschool and learn how to speak to each other or what? So the fault is not necessarily one-sided. It's both sides. It's a breakdown of both sides. One has... And usually when I hear these cases, it's oftentimes from women who've gone through numerous childbirth, their libido's shot to shit, they're also working a job. All these things are just stacking up on the plate, and there's nothing to address it in the sense of either having a conversation about it, bringing back at least a level of intimacy to the relationship that it was as in the beginning. And none of these are being addressed, and it's just, oh, you should do this, you should do that. So, yeah, it's it always surprises me that we as adults now having to sit there and grin our face and go, oh, but this should happen, when we don't address it directly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paulo. And then I'll pass it to Jerk, and then we'll come to conclude. What's the response to that tweet, Jerk?
It's the men's fault. And I say it like that because I do agree. You got to have some communication, but I think if somebody just went cold like that and it's not for a medical condition, that person just don't like you. They're with you for convenience. So as a guy, if you know, you got to be able to gauge that, have those tough conversations, and if the pattern still goes on, you know, me personally, I would never cheat on nobody. I never want to be in those situation. But it's just like eventually that's where it's going to lead to if you don't, you know, take leadership in that case and either have that conversation up front. And if the needs still ain't met, it's like, man, you got to move on because you don't want to put yourself in a position where, you know, you start seeking out other people and stuff like that. So nah, it's on the guys on this case. Because I like I said, I think you got to have that tough talk up front, you know, because we are prone to like seek out stuff if the needs ain't met. So like I said, I would never go down that path. So it's just like, you know what, see what it is. That person might not be feeling you no more. They might want to move on. Cool. You got to have that tough talk. You might get a little bit of rejection, but it's like, hey, go have that discussion.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jerk. I just had a quick question. Because somebody asked that on that Twitter, on that same Twitter thread. The guy was Ed said, what's a reasonable amount of time of, like, you know, if somebody said, you know what, just give me some time before we have sex again. What's a reasonable amount of time before it starts to get, okay, this is becoming a problem?
Oh, you got 2 weeks with me.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks? Okay. Like
unless someone cheated, what exactly are we putting everything on pause for?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, as soon as we gotta schedule it, we have a problem.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same thing. The fact that we're putting it on time, it's like, what's the issue?
Why are we scheduling it?
Yeah.
I don't feel like you've stepped out and I need to question why I'm with you at all. Then why exactly are we putting on a pause on a
like well, Balo mentioned you had some examples, right? Like, you know, maybe the libido was shot, or she's, you know, had children. So like certain situations.
Then
so
we're about to go eat some oysters. If your libido shot to shit, we're about to go eat some oysters. All right. So
I get that, or like if maybe a cycle just ended for the ladies or something like that. But I mean, like in regards to people saying, okay, well, I need time.
What do you need time for?
Or we all agree that time is needed. We all know if we've gone out and maybe ate oysters and should not be doing anything tonight, right? But if we do, maybe we should have done some things first. But in regards to the needing, unless you have just met this person and you have yet to intermingle your bodies, what other reason is there to be waiting time? Or having to postpone.
Y'all don't mess up Will's scenario.
I've heard this term from a lot of people. Well, I need to heal. And so
fuck that. If I don't want to fuck you when I see you, you know,
that's some shit she's supposed to be doing while she's single before she met you.
Yeah.
Not while trying to get to know you. That, I mean, maybe at the end of it, right? She's at the end of her healing journey, because other than that, she shouldn't be entertaining you anyway if she's on a healing journey. You can't heal and entertain a man at the same time. That don't work.
Gabby over here capping. Y'all know y'all ain't waiting. Nobody wait till they completely healed.
Hell no.
I do, but
y'all be from what we be hearing from everybody, be like what they say, what is the path of healing? It'd be like 30-something years.
What?
But you know that saying, they say you gotta get under one to get over one. I don't believe in that.
I don't believe in that.
All you're doing is adding more trauma and more baggage and more bodies to your life. When if you would have just taken that seat back, dealt with however old boy made you feel, dealt with the things that you weren't, dealing with within yourself, like the behaviors you exhibited and the things you accepted that maybe you shouldn't have. Until you deal with that, you shouldn't be messing with somebody else, because all you're gonna do is carry that shit into that situation anyway. So I personally like to heal first. I'm not jumping under nobody when somebody else was just keeping me warm. I have respect for other people. Yeah. I wouldn't even want to do that to you, because you expect me to come to you ready to intermingle and ready to get to know you and potentially maybe throw down later, and I don't want to have done that when I was just up under somebody else last week. That just feels disgusting to me.
No, okay. That's not it.
All right. Yeah, I think it's more of a red flag, because I understand women, sometimes you guys are going through your emotions, so you guys probably need some time. But I think if a man ever says, yeah, I I need some time. I think that's a big red flag.
Hell
yeah.
yes. Oh yes.
Most
What
guys
do
are
you
taking
need
that
time
opportunity.
for?
You tell me you need
No.
some time, and I'm gonna ask. So, what time of day?
Where do you need time? I'm trying to figure
What
it
time
out.
of day do you mean, sir? This is an everyday occurrence.
I
Respectfully.
mean, to be fair, like me and my man, we've been together for some years, and we don't have sex like bunnies, but like, there's not a day that I would say no. Like, there's just no way. Like, I find him highly attractive still after all these years. Like, there's no way that I would be like, nah, I need some time. The fuck? You said where? Here? Let's go. Like, what? That's where we're at.
Even
Like,
while unsatisfied, I will absolutely be like, you need to work on that. But in the meantime, come on.
my man. Like, I don't know women that are like in love with their man that don't want to have sex. Like,
I was dating, didn't even do foreplay right. You need to work on that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna jot down what else you're still slacking on in my mind, and we'll talk about it when we're done later. Because what are we doing?
No. My man will send me the little looking eyes. I'll be like, I'm on my way.
All right. No worries. Yeah. That was a question on the thread the guy was asking. I was like, what time is reasonable? But yeah. If he has asked for time, I think that's a red flag. That's a red flag. So, but ladies, we definitely come to the end, and I see you guys in the live chat. You guys are hilarious in the live chat right now. I see Milagros on the live chat. But thank you so much for you guys for participating. A lot of you guys watching the entire stream. Fellas, ladies, Dirk, follow, and then all the ladies on the panel. Thank you so much for jumping on and having this open, and a lot of times hard conversations, but ultimately trying to figure out solutions for a lot of men out there. And something we just realized from tonight's panel. If somebody ever asks you, I need some time from sex, yeah, that's
red flag.
yeah, that's definitely a red flag. All right, so
You don't want Gabby on three-way if they do.
Don't call me, but you should run.
Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be tough if you heard that. Especially the guys are hearing that, especially in their marriage. Have kids, and they're like, "I need some time." We got like 3 kids. What are you talking about?
We ain't got no time. This is the time.
We already have kids already. What are you talking about?
No.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough for a lot of people out there. But I'll pass it back to the fellas, to you guys, ladies, real quick. What's your final thoughts from tonight's convo? Thank you for jumping on and making the time. And how can people find you? I start with the ladies. I start with you, Yas. Always good to see you. Always good to have you back on the pod. Final thoughts, and how can we find you, Yas?
From last pods and this one, like, it's definitely needed. I really do enjoy different perspectives, and I enjoy how real we keep it, even if we don't agree with each other's, opinions and stuff. I really do enjoy the fact that we still keep it respectful. The conversations are needed and both perspectives are needed. But y'all can follow me on TikTok, Yaz Rodriguez. My name is right here in the panel. And then you can find me on Facebook, the same name. And then Instagram is Yasmelin X3. So, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Yaz. Always good to have you on the panel. I pass it to you, Milka. Final thoughts, and how can they find you?
It was definitely a good talk. I actually have been talking to my coworker about this topic lately. So definitely going to share this to him, the last bit part. You can find me on TikTok on Built Differently, same thing on Instagram. And it was really nice being on the panel with the rest of you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Milka. I'll pass it to you, Mai. Always good to have you on. Thank you for jumping on and making the time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Do appreciate holding them accountable with that crybaby shit. They're definitely good to hear. Definitely good to hear that from coming from women. But go ahead, Mai. Final thoughts, and how can they find you?
It's always a pleasure being on your podcast, so I do appreciate it. Unfortunately, I am at work, so thank you for bearing with me. You can find me at my_world1203 or the Wonderland Effect, which is my podcast on YouTube. Always a blast, always a pleasure. And then I don't feel like I was picked on, so I love it.
Or see, that's what I'm talking about. That's not that crybaby shit. Right.
Or that I was being the bully this time, so I feel like it was fun, more enjoyable.
All right. Thank you so much, Mai. I'll pass it to you, Gabby. Gabby, final thoughts and how can they find you? Always good to have you back on here, Gabby.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to join these podcasts. I love the energy. I love the back and forth because it's healthy. And a lot of these conversations you see on the internet, women are like being accosted and men are being like emasculated. And there's just always something very wrong happening. So I love this space because it's respectful. And like I said, regardless of whether or not you agree with someone or not, both people are always able to get their point across and be heard, and their audience is able to find them. And I truly love that. So thank you for having me. And my Instagram is currently deactivated because I think I was shadow banned. But it will be back in 2 weeks. So you can find me on any platform just by typing in Gabby Rose, GABBYROSE, like you see here. And if you're a music fan, you can also type in my name on any streaming platform and find my music too to get to know a little bit more about me. I actually sing about some of the stuff we've talked about in these podcasts. So yeah, just type that in on any platform and you will find me for sure. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the same. Gabby Rose.
All right. Thank you so much, Gabby. Always good to have you. Good to see you again. And pass it to you, Jess. Thank you for jumping on again. Final thoughts and how can they find you, Jess?
Of course, I always enjoy this as I am single and dating, and some of these questions and prompts definitely make me not question, but it definitely gives me a good perspective and insight as some of these things of am I creating the same habit, or am I helping to correct some bad decisions that I've continued. So I always enjoy the different perspectives and learning a little bit more about myself as we're doing this too. So it's really helpful. And I like that it's always a open platform, open forum for us to all express that. You can find me on Instagram on Makeup Mama 1, and I'm that funny wax chick on TikTok.
All right. Thank you so much, Jess. I'll pass it to the fellas. Start with you, Jerk. Final thoughts. And how can they find you, Jerk, in your channel?
All right, you can find me on a Manic Sophistication channel. You know, we do all kind of content. We over there talking shit a lot, but great conversation tonight, man. I think you do a good job putting together like intellectual females, and of course, you know, you got Paulo over here, and then I'm like mid-tier, somewhat smart, but great job. You know, very respectful. So I do love when everybody comes here and shares their perspectives. But yeah, try to follow me. We're here on Thursday, so if y'all ever want to pull up, you know, we do like having conversations with females and stuff to show that, you know, we could have these dialogues in a respectful manner and stuff. So whenever y'all like bored or something, you know, keep pulling up here and, you know, bringing those ideas. But back to you, Will. Thanks for, you know, hosting this.
All right, no worries. And also, we're going to add on to one of our services on Thursdays, ladies. If you want us to vet your men, bring them with you, and we'll vet them for you. We'll test them out.
We'll show y'all them red flags.
Oh, I'm holding all of y'all up on that offer.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I decide whether or not this one makes the cut, I'm gonna send them straight to y'all.
Yeah. Just bring them on the pod. We'll take care of the rest.
I'm still trying to convince my man, Will. I'm still trying to convince my man.
I'm waiting for that day. Thank you so much. Paulo, as always, good to have you on the pod. Final thoughts, and they'll only find you on here.
Yeah. I think the older I get, the more I hate social media. So don't find me anywhere. You'll only find me here. Look, it's always a great conversation. And to the ladies, it's been a wonderful panel tonight. And the ability to go back and forth, I admire. And it's not something that you see very often, especially on these in these YouTube spaces. So again, always appreciate your selection, Will. My final thoughts are often in this regards. For us who are getting a little bit more older, we're now having children along our sides. These issues need to be looked at in the ways, especially when it comes to us as men. The idea of bickering within relationship, you'll get to a point where life actually fucking hits you, and it doesn't hit you where you think it's going to hit you. Oftentimes it hits you with the innocence in your care, and this is where all these components come in together. oftentimes these will be the make or break. And for us as men, it's that ability to stand there and go, I now have a responsibility to a woman and to children in my care. Who is the type of man who's going to stand up and be that rock in between that space? Oftentimes that's where life will hit you. Now that we're finding out what we're truly made of, all of these conversations will look back and go, wow, I used to spend a lot of time, bickering back and forth with these sort of ideas, and now I have someone who's completely still in my care but untouched, with all of these things that I now have to be accountable for. So the word of advice or word of endearment for men is that leadership is no joke. And I've always made the statement that it's an unglamorous position to be in for us as men. And it's unglamorous for the very thing that we go back and forth with. You're going to have to depend on yourself vast majority of the time. So it becomes a very lonely journey. But as I mentioned briefly before, rise to the occasion. Because we have it within us, and if you don't, find men who do have those perspectives. And you'll find them here in the masculine mind if you can't find them anywhere else. To the ladies, the idea of safe space for men is one that you've been diluted with. For the love of all that is good and just share shit, please get away from that notion. That does not mean that you should be unruly and be, unpeaceful or chaotic. But what it does mean is that in your selection phase, look for men who can stand on their own 2 feet and will look at life and go, if I make a decision to you as the woman to take that path and that journey with me, I will ensure that from this day forward that you will become someone that I cater to, so much so that should it fail, it'll be on me. Well, it's always a pleasure to come on. I might jump off for another couple more months, but it's always a pleasure to come on and to sort of sit next to Jerk. It's always a pleasure. I think Jerk keeps me a little bit unbiased in certain things, and when he pushes back, it rattles my brain, so I think a little bit more, and I enjoy that very much. Again, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and Will, I look forward to the next one.
No worries. Thank you so much, Paulo. Ladies, fellas, thank you for the great time. Appreciate you guys. But thank you so much, everybody that watched the entire stream. I see you guys participating in the live chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see value in the content. So we do go live next time with a new panel and a new topic. But we'll see you guys next time. Everybody, you guys have a great night. Peace, y'all.
Everybody.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you
Good
so much.
night.
Peace.